Good morning. Welcome into Herd at Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here at the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
What is going on?
Good weekend.
Yeah, wasn't too bad.
I think a lot of people would take that.
What wasn't too bad? Steelers in Nebraska got wins, so I'm always going to be okay with that.
And Westside got a win,
Well, that seems like so far long ago.
I don't
Although,
know.
if you're a Monday or if you're an NFL fan, that Friday night doesn't seem like that too far ago. Too far ago?
Too far long ago?
Too far long ago? Far long ago.
I don't know if is that a real song?
I don't know.
It was that Friday night game was pretty good though.
Like those sorry Beatles. No, I mean if you're a Barkley fan.
I mean,
Saquon. Is he one of your fantasy guys?
he was one of my. Well, I just thought he was going to bounce back, so that's why I took him.
You and the whole free world.
Well, I just
bounce back from having a good season with the Giants.
I'm not saying it's a hot take, but
bounce back. Hey, so I think Saquon's going to be pretty good in Philly's offense. Ooh, hot take.
Yeah. Listen, I had some people trying to tell me that Jalen was going to poach his touchdowns.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Poach, like steal them from him.
Yeah.
Jalen wasn't great, but
it's okay.
That does seem like a minute ago.
It does. A lot has happened since Friday night.
Yeah.
I was out at Miller North watching them kind of get their head kicked in a little bit.
Yeah, I talked to Vermoss on Saturday. He said, "Man,
It wasn't as bad as it looked."
He goes, they were pretty good.
They were.
Because it might have been the best team we played against. It. And he was funny. He's like, no disrespect, but man, they might have been better than you guys.
They were from last year's team. They were in the neighborhood. That was a really good Cherry Creek team.
Oh, which is crazy because they had lost so much.
Yeah, ton of turnovers.
And hadn't played great the week before. I was trying to check them out on Huddle.
Yeah.
I was like, it's hard though because you don't know who they're playing against. But one thing I did see.
Yeah.
They were good up front.
Yeah, they were really good up front. But we don't have to dissect Miller North, but that was a little closer.
That's what you do.
That was a little closer, and the score was they weren't able to finish drives, and then they had a pick six before half that kind of got it away from them.
Oh, Jimmy the pick sixer.
We do nobody's gonna believe me. I swear.
I certainly.
Well, you never do.
No, I would believe you. I don't think you fib to me.
I really don't.
You skirt issues, but you don't fib.
I'm just squirmy. I like to get a little. I like being cornered.
Yes.
Never put Robbie in a corner, right?
Them and babies.
I almost texted you Saturday morning because I had a dream that Tommy Hill had a pick six.
Yeah.
Like I legitimately, it was longer than that in my dream. It was longer than like the 7 yards. But I was like, I think Tommy Hill's going to have a pick six today.
Tommy Hill is. Do you know who had the pick six? John Bullock had the pick six.
You called it live, which was impressive because I didn't see it till the replay.
Yeah.
I remember you told me about it at halftime.
Yeah.
But I saw it as I'm watching it again yesterday, and I go, man, he just drops right in. It's like 2 steps.
Yep.
It's like 2 steps to take away Travis Hunter on the slant.
Yep.
And then Shedeur goes, didn't think that was going to be there. And then he's late to the outside. And then Tommy Hill I don't think people appreciate how hard that catch was.
Yeah, it was a great catch.
Like, I mean, the still shot is pretty incredible.
It was a great catch.
Unbelievable play.
And he's playing. It was interesting, too, because he knew where his leverage was.
Mm-hmm.
And
he came from pretty far off, too. It's not like he was bump and run on that guy.
Long way to throw a ball. Is a good drive on the route. And I'm telling you, I see what I want to see because I want to be right. But Bullock is that dude.
Yes.
And
he had a great game.
And I was so mad wasn't the word, but I'm having these conversations with you about like Bear and what he said all week. And I'm like, you know what? What was my sentiment with what Bear said? I didn't give 2 cares, right? Like I go back and I listen to what he said. There was nothing inflammatory.
It was pretty innocuous.
He wasn't disrespectful.
He didn't say anything about Shedeur. He was talking about Dylan.
And we're such babies. It's don't say anything until you, man, you never played a thing in your life if you feel like that. Right? Like I was actually mad at those people. Yeah. And if they're your friends, tell them I don't apologize for it. Tell them they got to put their big boy pants on too. Like who cares?
Yeah.
He talked about his guys. And I'll take it one step further. We're out on the field before the game doing my thing, right? Mm-hmm. Coach Rule takes his walk. We exchange pleasantries. And I asked him something about the way that they wanted to play.
Mhm.
He stopped, took the pot out, he looked at me, and he said, "Look, we're a good football team. We're going to play in a way where everybody's going to," I'm paraphrasing because he's pretty fired up.
Yeah.
He said, "Look, we're a good football team. We're going to play in such a way where people are going to know we're a good football team. We're better than those guys."
That's what I honestly.
And so who like, and I thinking, ooh, that's before the game. Jinx.
Is he overconfident?
Is he overconfident? Yeah. No, I could like it doesn't move my needle to the negative one bit. I'm just thinking, you know what? That's a team. What I said I'd take Nebraska all the way to 10 plus ATS. Like the only
we both felt that way.
The only thing that scared me remotely was, could it be as easy as they can't block Nebraska?
And yes, it was.
And it was.
That was 100% that easy.
It was that easy.
I mean, I told
you Kalinskis was going to struggle, didn't I?
Yes.
I'm like, how is he going to block those two?
Well, apparently their plan was just to hold everybody all night, which was, I mean, it doesn't matter because Nebraska won anyway. The second half, especially, some of the most egregious missed holding calls I've ever seen in my life.
Well,
it was every drop back.
And that's not to say that even the two that were called, I didn't like Ramirez at all.
No, that was a terrible one.
And they stepped it off wrong.
Yeah. Because it was further downfield.
Yeah. Well,
and then they put it back at like the 20.
At worst, it was the 32 where it occurred.
Yeah.
You probably could have gone 33 and a half. Spot foul. The other one was Justin Evans Jenkins. That wasn't a hold.
No, it wasn't. It really wasn't.
Like, I'm like, he fell down.
Yes. Well, and they even said it on the TV broadcast at one point.
I heard that was.
It was.
Was it?
It was a struggle bus.
I'm gonna go back.
But
because, boy, folks are not happy.
They were on the struggle bus a little bit, but they even one of the salient points that Colt McCoy made was, I think they're just getting blocked to the ground, and the refs are calling holding on it. And the rules analyst goes, "Yeah, that used to just be called a pancake."
Yeah.
Like that's what was happening is Colorado was getting driven into the ground, and then they'd be like, "Oh, Colorado got on the ground holding," whereas Nebraska's getting has the arm bar around the neck every time they're pass rushing on the outside, especially. But it happened a lot on the inside too, where guys would get beat on a move.
It
was crazy.
And you don't want the broadcast to be dominated by negativity and because I'm not people know, like, I'm not an officials guy, like,
right.
But it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It was one of the worst I had. I mean, it was so bad. I'm arguing with Severe, like real time.
Yeah.
Because I like what he does. He's savvy. He knows how to watch football, but he must listen to the radio broadcast as he's watching the game. Because sometimes he'll either tell me, and sometimes it's to enlighten, sometimes it's to inform, sometimes it's maybe it was this or on the replay, because he'll so I kind of figured out, oh, he must be listening.
Yeah.
So he was trying to explain to me the targeting thing, because rhetoric out loud I said, well, it doesn't have to be with the helmet, like you can lead with a forearm. What I didn't understand was how real time you could call that a dead ball.
Yeah.
After the play,
the one on
personal foul. And I'm like, you have to rewrite the slide thing if you're going to get down to the nitty gritty of plays dead when a quarterback starts his slide. Because number one, that's too bang bang.
Because if a quarterback starts a slide and a defender starts his tackle at the same time, that ends up being a penalty on Bayer.
Yeah,
because that's what happened.
That's a terrible.
Shedeur went to slide at the exact same time that Bayer went to tackle, and it would have been a clean tackle if Shedeur stays up. And all of a sudden, that has to be, by the rule, the letter of the law, that has to be a targeting on Bayer, which doesn't make any sense because they left at the same time.
Oh, I know.
Like, it can't be that.
And that's why I think you should have some common sense with replay too.
Yeah. If you see it, and you're like,
but then you get into whether you want to legislate intent,
I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Anyway, right? They do it on roughing the passer. Why can't they do it on targeting? right?
I know.
Because anytime you touch, like if you have a hand come high on a quarterback helmet, it doesn't matter what the intent was. That's a roughing the passer now, right?
This is I'm waiting for somebody else to tell me, like, is this crazy or not? And Sharpie didn't really, I don't think, take me to task is one, but it was a point of concern. I said, at some point,
Mhm.
as a father, watching your kids get their tail whipped,
Yeah, you said that to me at halftime.
like, does
Has
that
to affect you.
does that affect you?
Well, let me ask you.
Does that affect you? I asked you.
Yeah.
I talked to one of our guests. What did we give him? 843, Shane? Severe?
For
Yeah.
severe, yes.
So I asked him yesterday. I said, you might be the wrong person to ask because you love your kids so much.
Mhm.
Because he would do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, does that creep into? Would that creep into your frontal lobe? Because they were getting their ass whipped.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, you see Shiloh break his arm.
hey,
And
did you hear that?
Uh-uh.
Oh my goodness. How did I describe Dowdell last week? As the guy that he's the guy that would just sprint down a hallway
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and not move to his right
100%.
or move to his left.
Yes.
He sprinted down the goddamn hallway.
He searches out for the
and
contact.
it was like clack, clack, clack. And listen, Shiloh brings it now.
Yeah.
He's not a cover guy, but he brings drama.
Yeah.
And like he folded him up like a lawn chair.
Yeah. Dowdell was running angry.
And I was like, huh. I wonder if real time, I thought he broke his wrists.
Oh yeah. I mean, that would make sense for his form.
That's what I thought it was, because it got bent.
Yeah.
But turns out it was his forearm, and he's walking around on the sideline. So, and I know what that's like, right? Like, you're coaching in a game. Yeah, you're coaching in a game, and your kid gets hurt, right? So you got to dial back in. But then to the repetitiveness of just watching
Shedeur get his head beat in.
How many knees did he take before he acted like he was going to go back in the game?
Man,
it was incredible.
I thought he was tapping out. I really did.
And the hardest hit he took was on a play that didn't count.
The Prince Will one.
Oh,
he got smoked. Also, that was also a terrible call.
Oh,
on the replay.
Oh,
James Williams is like a full yard and a half off the line of scrimmage.
It's incredible.
But yeah, Prince Will smoked him.
But Brown and Seaton, and like I said, I get the attention was on the tackles.
Mm-hmm.
It was guard, center, guard. I didn't think they had a chance.
Well, I mean, Seaton got abused too.
He did.
He held better than most people. So
it's really hard to get out of here. I mean, Nebraska's what I tell you, like Nebraska's subbing.
Yeah,
with guys that are starting.
Yeah, Cam Lenhart is coming in as
almost anywhere else.
Yeah, well, and he's coming in as
you got Cam, you have Prince Will, you have James Williams.
Yeah,
like best way you have Jamari Butler situationally pass rushing.
Yeah, and he was killing people.
He's a terror.
Yes, he was unbelievable. So was Prince Will though. Prince Will had some huge plays.
And
James Williams was like
spend like 2-3 minutes talking to Jamari Butler for his big egregious, like just his outgoing gregarious. Not egregious.
I've said egregious like 3 times.
His personality, like he's a nightmare.
Yeah, he is a terror on that side, and that defensive line is exactly what you told me it was all throughout fall camp.
Yeah. I can say it out loud now, right?
Yes.
I'm like, I don't know if Nebraska's as bad up front as maybe that scrimmage showed, but that they can't block that D line.
No, well, I'm not sure anybody can. Although, Colorado's not the best measuring stick offensive line wise, but 0 for 2 on being able to block that D line. Did they bring more than 5 the entire night? They only brought 5 a couple times.
No, I had one of the greatest talks with Coach, but it's the longest I'd talked to him, like just mano a mano. Dude is extremely bright. There was clearly a game plan.
Oh yeah,
Coach Rule alluded to it. Hey, we're bigger, we're stronger, we're gonna be as physical as we can. Coach White alluded to it. Hey, we think we can win up front. This is going to be a big boy, buckle up kind of game. Coach Butler, you know what? Like, we're going to be as physical as we can on the outside. We know what these over routes are like. This is how we're going to play it. Now, We'll see if it turns out that way because they have good players. But this is what we want to do. It's exactly. If Colorado wanted to win in the passing game and they
Mhm.
got in a 3-by, you're going to have to do it with your interior receivers.
Yes.
They were
Which is where you saw him get some. That's the only thing they got, though.
But they weren't gonna just win
Because they didn't hit an over the entire night, did they?
No.
They had the one long pass play down the sideline to Horn, I think,
Mhm.
in a one-on-one. That was it. Everything else was intermediate or shorter.
Yep.
They only hit 3 or 4 of the intermediate ones.
It just the game. It's just guys are just too smart if you don't want to run the ball.
So I'm curious about Coach Rule pregame because I went back and watched the TV broadcast, and when he comes out, they do a quick interview with him, and the sense I got from the 30 seconds or whatever.
Was this half or
No, this
beginning?
was pregame.
Okay.
Because the TV didn't talk to him coming out of half. They
Okay.
talked to Dion. But pregame, I got the sense that he knew exactly what was about to happen.
Mhm.
And I don't know if
That's how he talked.
That's how it came off to you.
100. He called his shot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he said more than that, but he called his shot.
Like,
And he looked at me like he knew.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what kind of came across in the 30 seconds or whatever that NBC talked to him coming into the game. And I'm curious how I would have felt about that if I had seen that in real time, like actually before the game, because seeing it after the fact, you're like,
Would you have been like people were with Bear? Well, you shouldn't say anything until you win a game.
no, I think it would have made me more confident because
Yeah.
I came in thinking that, I mean, what was my score prediction Friday was 38-20.
Yeah.
So I thought Nebraska was going to beat them up pretty good.
Mhm.
I thought Colorado might be able to score a little bit more. Of course, I thought Nebraska would be able to too. But I think it would have made me more confident because I kind of had the same sentiment you said. Rule said to you is like, this is if it's about football, Nebraska's just better.
Mhm.
Nebraska's just a better football team. And I know everybody kept saying, well, oh, Colorado's got the 2 best players. Colorado's got the 2 best players. And that's fine. But what about numbers 3 through 40?
Yeah.
Like, who's got the best guys there?
Like my response to Lance.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Nebraska just has
More good players. I mean, 3 through 44. Let's call it a 2 deep, right? How many guys after Shedeur and Travis do you think make that top 44?
Very few.
Because it's not a lot.
Very few.
You probably put Horn in there at some point.
Yeah. Very few.
Not a lot. I mean, it's not a big list.
McKinley, he's a good DB.
Now
he's going to have to sit this first half
Yes.
with Woods and
Yeah.
and Bear, but how good can it's early.
Mhm.
But there's 2 things you cannot dispute.
Okay.
If you're looking for development. And these 2 guys, one for sure, I think for whatever the reason was on the developmental hot seat.
Mhm.
No business, because I used Anthony Grant as the example.
Yeah, BJ Barthel.
Listen, leave that guy alone.
Yeah.
He knows.
Do you know how far Dowdell's come from spring to now?
I don't even recognize him.
Because you were not a huge fan.
No.
Coming out of spring.
And I'm not alone, right? What Coach Rule say?
He said he was 4th coming out of spring.
Yeah, I'm like,
it's exactly where he was.
I was like, okay.
It wasn't a myth. It's not like you just didn't like Dowdell.
I had one of the longest. I talked to Foreman during spring for probably, I don't know, it was a minute.
Yeah.
Over 30 plus. 10 of it was about the running backs.
Yeah.
Everybody was vibing.
Yeah.
Like leave EJ alone.
100%.
That dude knows.
This is the best extended stretch we've seen from Ramir in his career.
Yeah.
We've seen like plays before. He's played well for 2 games now.
Guys.
He broke a 70-yarder that didn't count, but
that was so bad.
But
anyway.
That group is, and I've said the running backs were just fine. If Dowdell and Ramir play like that, they're better than just fine.
Yeah, he gets the developmental nod.
And who's the other one? Dvorak?
Yes.
Because Bullock is a monster.
So's Bear.
Yeah. 100%.
But
Bullock jumped off the page, jumped off the tape.
It just.
He was so good on Saturday.
It's just I feel good. All off.
It was
You asked me. I said, "Oh, that one's easy. Give me Bullock."
100%.
Who's Nebraska's defensive MVP? Oh, that one's easy. Give me Bullock. Now he may not. We still have.
He may not put up the
10
stats or
games to go, or however many they're going to play, but
he is hugely important to what that team does.
And in that defense, do people understand what it's like to have 6 in the box, or 5 in the box, just that? Not to go all Canadian, but like bare naked ladies, right? It's like you have 5 guys in the box against these spread teams. It's hard to play in there with all that space.
Yeah.
Do I bump out? Am I going to be in a 40? Am I off ball? Can I get to these seam routes? If I'm getting hooked to curl, I still have to be able to fit in the run game.
Yeah.
Who's pulling up the quarterback on scrambles? Like, it's miserable.
Yeah.
And he is so sudden and so stinking violent. Go back and watch the 4th down stop,
where he shoots the gap.
Where see that's an open window.
And not a big one.
Climb your ass through there.
Yeah.
It's open. Get in.
Yeah, as soon as he saw an opening, and that's one of the things that you said in the spring, where it's like, okay, can he play his athleticism level?
Will he shoot his shot?
And he certainly did on Saturday.
He's a real one.
We will get into much,
and he's mean too.
We will get into much more Nebraska, Colorado. We've got a huge weekend from college football and the full NFL slate as well. Coming up at 8, we're going to talk to Sam McEwen. 8:43, Michael Severe, and at 9, we'll talk to Dennis Dodd, who covers all the college football. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula. We'll be back with more Herd Out Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back to Herd Out Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here at Herd Out Sports Bar and Grill. Before we jump back into it, let's get to Jack. He's giving us a call from Tennessee. Jack, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, what's up?
Jack, how are we, buddy?
You know what, man? Got all moved in down here in Tennessee. Found out a lot. People down here are really friendly. I haven't seen one saloon, but I've seen a whole lot of Baptist churches. Kind of give you an idea, kind of what it's like down here.
Yeah.
It's okay. People are extremely friendly. But anyway, the reason I called you, so happy. I don't care. Offense slowed down a little bit second half. Things got a little lackluster, but overall, you got to be pretty happy.
Yeah.
And I was. When I moved down here, I'd put on my cap or my T-shirt or something and go out in public, and people are friendly, and I don't think they were being snotty or catty. You say, hey, you think you guys are ever going to be good again? Think you guys are ever going to win again? And then yesterday it went out. People are saying, maybe Nebraska and Tennessee will be able to match up in a big bowl. What do you think about that? I mean, it's just a whole different vibe, the way people looked at us and the way people thought it just almost felt like old times.
Yeah.
The reason I really called, if you were going to rank after 2 weeks, the Big Ten, after the wins and the losses and the way people look and the way people don't look, how would you rank the Big Ten today? I know it's only week 2, got a long way to go, but as of 2 weeks, how would you rank the Big Ten? Guys, I love talking to you. I've still listen to you every morning, and have a good day.
I appreciate it, Jack. Thanks.
Man, that's a tough one because a lot of teams have not looked like we thought they should.
So I would safely put Nebraska in the top 5.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair.
Maybe 4.
You could talk me into 4.
So I think, if we're being completely honest, you probably start in some order: Ohio State, USC.
Yep. Those are the only 2 I'm 100% convinced are better than Nebraska at this moment. I don't know what the rest of the season looks like. But
you can let Penn State and Oregon fight it out, but if you're going by looks,
yeah. Penn State looked pretty good against West Virginia. They didn't look good against Bowling Green.
You could make the case.
Oregon hasn't looked good yet.
And it's not because I said that they would win. You could make the case. Illinois
look good.
Is in the discussion.
Illinois look good.
Yeah.
That's going to make a couple weeks from now pretty interesting.
So it doesn't always work out like this, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't know. I'd be a professional gambler.
You'd be in
and do
Brian
this all-
Edwards' world.
So the two of the lines that bugged me all week,
Iowa State. You were on that one from the jump.
but it just didn't.
That doesn't sit right. Doesn't make any sense.
Nor did Kansas. And I asked you, I said, dude,
Illinois is the one that I was on. I thought Iowa would beat Iowa State still, but Illinois is the one I was like,
and
I
I'm
think
like,
Illinois,
I said, that line is not, it's not right.
I thought Illinois was off for sure. That's a home game for Illinois.
And they're playing better offensively.
Yeah,
Now, somebody
they are.
pulled me to the side. It was Saturday night. Yeah, I hadn't left yet, which, by the way, I didn't get home
Mhm.
till like 12:55 on Saturday.
Oof.
Might have been in the ones.
I was about 12:30.
So, no, I was in the ones actually. But anyway, somebody asked me about Illinois. And I said, yeah. I said, normally that would get my attention if it was anywhere other than Friday night in Lincoln.
Mhm.
I'm
Not worried.
I'm okay.
I also think Nebraska is currently a better version of what Illinois tries to do.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, we'll play like styles, I think Nebraska is currently better at it than Illinois.
I'm
is.
not afforded the luxury to fast forward, but I do want to see. I am pretty pumped to see Monangai and those guys try to run the ball consistently
Mhm.
in a month, you know.
Yeah.
But we'll get to you and I, because I think the next phase for Nebraska, and Jack kind of alluded to it. I answered so many questions about Nebraska's offensively and people being mad at Sat, and I'm just like,
Especially in the second half. Yeah.
you guys don't watch football.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to say. And I hate being a jerk like that, but sometimes you just have to say what it is, right?
Mhm.
I mean, they ran the ball 8 times in the third quarter. They
Mhm.
threw it 10. I think Raiola was 7 of 10.
Mhm.
4 of those plays they had penalties. They ran it 8. Nebraska had the ball for over 8 minutes.
Yep.
I think 8:30. This is just data points.
Just in the third quarter, we're talking about.
Just in
Yep.
the third quarter, and you had a 3-score lead.
Mhm.
So how did you guys want if
Or
you're
four score, right? Because 28-3. That's 25. Oh, 3. Yeah, you're right. I can't do math.
That's okay. Like how'd you want them to play?
Because then if they're airing it out, they're like, what are they doing? Why can't you solve the game?
Remember,
away?
he was 7 of 10 in the third
Yeah.
quarter.
And
So they threw it 10 times.
Yeah.
10.
so they didn't go in a shell.
They ran it 8. That's
Pretty balanced.
pretty good balance, right?
And let's not pretend like there's a drive at the end of the third quarter. I think it's about 2 or 3 minutes left. They absolutely score on that drive, if not for the penalties.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And they were pretty questionable penalties at best.
20% of the plays there was a penalty.
I think I counted up I called them explosive plays. They were plays about 20 yards or more.
Mm.
There were 4 for sure that Nebraska had, including a 69-yard touchdown and a 51-yard catch from Barney. Those were in the fourth quarter, but I'm talking whole second half here. You had 4 explosive plays called back. 2 of them were on the drive at the end of the third quarter I was talking about. The other 2 were on the drive where Ramir had the 51-yard play called back and the 69-yard touchdown were on the same drive that got called back.
Can I get credit for Satterfield or can Sat get credit for the seam route to Bork against cover 2?
Yeah.
I was talking about around. Like, that's a vintage cover 2 beater, right? You needed a play to be made. That's good recognition. Is anybody like, oh man, you know what?
Like
That's a good wrinkle, because what Colorado did to kind of stymie the run game, they couldn't get I couldn't believe the way that they were playing defensively the first quarter and a half. I was looking at Sharpie. I'm like, this is coaching malpractice.
Yeah.
Like, they're not giving them a chance. And Nebraska could just do it over and over again.
And they did
Colorado
until
adjusted.
they changed it.
Shiloh gets hurt. They go to a more one-boxy look, or I won't do the football thing. But, okay, so my only criticism I would have said, like if it were me, is I would have gotten to where Nebraska wanted to do concept-wise. I would have done it out of 2-back. Because when they went 1-back gun, unless they got in pistol, I think Colorado got their tendency.
Well, so one of the things I noticed, and tell me if I'm missing this or not, I thought, and this I think goes to your two-back point, I thought when they brought the tight end in motion and used him as a lead blocker, it almost always worked.
Yeah.
Except for one time, Fedoni blocked the wrong guy.
Yeah.
He didn't kick out.
And he knew it too.
Yep, he didn't kick out to the outside.
Yeah.
I think it was 90.
It's that duo look. It's like split
Yes.
action and they run duo, right?
But so that you would have gotten the same concept or the same effectiveness out of a two-back situation.
And the difference between that and what they were doing concept-wise is you give your back a two-way go, right? So when you're in the eye versus the gun, you don't have to use zone action. So it's not as
when the
across. You don't
when
have
the
to
tight
go
end's coming across, you only have one option as the back
I
on
can
way to
get
go.
downhill.
Whereas if you're in a I formation, you get to kind of choose. A little bit.
Right.
So that gives you more options.
That would have been my caveat. But do you know how many minutes Nebraska had the ball for in the fourth quarter?
Most of them.
Yeah, 8:30.
Yeah.
Or 8:27.
Yeah.
They ran the ball 8 times. You know how many times they threw it?
In the fourth?
Yeah.
8.
3.
Yeah.
You have a 2-score lead.
Mhm.
What did you want him to do?
I wanted him to salt away the clock and win the
Because
game.
you know what Nebraska's got to figure out how to do?
Yeah.
And it never happens.
Mhm.
Play with a lead late in the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's a learning process.
100%. That's not something that anybody on this team has experience with.
And we're mad?
I'm not mad.
I didn't get it.
Out of breath, Brian. Hang on the line here. We will get to you at the top of the next segment. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula. More Herd Sports Radio coming up. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Herd Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula, live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Let's get to some more phone calls. We've got out of breath Brian wants to talk a little second half. Brian, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on, fellas?
Hi, B.
Hey, Damon. And I understand what you guys are getting. I was saying this once second half started. I said, especially watching the high school games around the state the first 2 weeks with the blowouts. Hey, when you got the win, man, just sit on it and run the ball. It helped. I get what you're saying. They have to learn how to win because 4-minute drive, you got to run the ball. That's what they were practicing on. And I mean, I'm looking at it from Dallas Cowboy fan yesterday. We got a lead would look like we were sitting on it. I noticed Mike McCarthy sitting on it. Shoot, we started doing that right after Jake Ferguson almost got injured for the rest of the season. So I see the point that you get at. I had no problem with it when they started sitting on the ball in the third quarter because the point of the game was just to lead with the win, and you had to win. They couldn't do nothing.
Yeah,
all.
I get aesthetically, it looks like
You feel
they're
better
being
about
redundant.
42 than you 28.
But if I'm going to throw bubbles and swings, I'm still getting my guy in space. And let's not act like, Barney's swing pass where Fedoni got out on the edge and sealed. Like that wasn't one of their bigger plays. What Nebraska was trying to do was use those as long handoffs because there were a couple of times.
I'm getting that now.
There were a couple of times those plays at McKinley, they made one or probably 3 great plays out in space, winning one-on-one, or those are house calls.
Yeah.
Like I could clearly see the design of, and it's safe. You keep your freshman quarterback out of harm's way
and in a rhythm.
And you're still trying to be relatively
in your salt and clock.
Like, I don't know. I just think that's part of the process of learning how to win.
Well, one other thing, Damon. I know you laughed at me week 1. You still laughing at people putting Bowling Green on their sheet? You still laughing at Bowling Green? Huh? You want to laugh?
Too late. Touche, you degenerate. You and Brian Edwards. All right. My Connor Baselak is apparently Joe Montana. All right, B, I appreciate you, man.
And we got
at least Joel is honest. This is why I like the mayor.
Yeah.
Right? He says, listen, I'm not mad. But sitting in the stadium that night, I wanted blood. I wanted utter humiliation. To start
100%.
with the Brett Crawford thing, I wanted them to close the show, turn the page. You and I, then a Friday night with 2 ranked teams versus Illinois. See, say that.
Yeah.
Because that's
what you're mad about. You wanted it to be a bludgeoning.
And you know what I would say to this? I got nothing.
I get it. Because there was, in real time, this is how I felt. I was like, oh, man, like I feel way better about 42-10 than I would about 28-10, and like because you wanted it to look as dominant as it felt.
Yeah, he
Right?
he just was on. That's fine. Like it was his feelings. Like he wanted
Which is cool. If you can acknowledge that,
the jugular.
I'm good because I wanted it too.
You know, it left a bitter taste in Colorado's mouth, though.
Listen, I'm just telling you,
losing that game like that, it did.
you guys don't understand. I mean, maybe they do, but they got their tails kicked.
Yes, like they got dominated
And I'm
physically dominated.
I'm not gonna put feeling to Coach Rule's words, but when a coach says, "Hey, man, I hope your kids are okay,"
Mhm.
he knows what happened.
Yeah,
He watched it.
everybody knows what happened.
He can hear it.
Yes,
You can see it. They just were outmatched. And I think part of it was Nebraska played that way because they felt like they could.
I mean, how many guys did you see limp off the field in the second half?
And listen, don't get me wrong. Colorado was bringing some drama too.
They were. I was really impressed with their tackling. Honestly, I thought they did a much better job.
They thump you now pretty good.
I thought they did a much better job defensively, tackling in space and things like that, like you said, because Nebraska, like you said, was a couple missed tackles on the perimeter away from multiple house calls, right?
Yeah.
Whether it was Barney, whether it was Ramir. There was a couple where Dowdell was like through the hole and somebody got an ankle.
Yep.
There were a bunch of those. So I will give Colorado credit there. They were better in that phase defensively than I thought they were, or than I thought they could be. And that was, I mean, that's to their credit.
Yeah.
But
I can ride with this.
what did Coach Rule? Who did Coach Rule say he wanted to play like last year? What team did he say was?
I can't even remember.
With Michigan.
Oh yeah.
What did Saturday look like?
Yeah,
that looked like a Michigan game.
it did.
It's like, why didn't they score more? Why didn't they blow them out by more? You watch that game; they were physically dominated.
Yeah. And when they needed to throw the ball vertically, they did.
Yeah. And either they got a completion or they got a lot of pass interference. And
I'm telling you right now, Borkacher's pretty good.
I have a question about Borkacher and the tight ends, but I want to get to some calls here first. Asian, Wyatt, want to talk about the crowd at the game. Wyatt, what's going on, bud?
Hey, so I was at the game and it was one of the most, even though it wasn't a close game, it was one of the most satisfying, exciting games and loud games like I said, I was loud as AF. It was a fantastic time, and
we asked our engineer back in the studio. You know, we occasionally would check our mic levels and stuff, and he's like, "Hey, the levels are fine. It's just the crowd is so loud."
Did your booth shake at all? Because the other one did.
It was incredible.
Like it shook after the pick six. It shook.
Yeah, I'm in my seats are in the corner of the southwest end zone, right above the little scoreboard right there.
Oh yeah,
So I was pounding on top of that scoreboard every time. In my hand is still kind of hurting a little bit. And
so that little pocket of Colorado fans is right to your left, right?
No, opposite end.
Oh,
Caddy
southwest. Corner. Yeah, caddy corner. Yeah. You're right. Southwest.
Yeah, that little tiny. I couldn't believe how few Colorado fans are actually there.
And then they put the other ones way up on the northeast corner. I was like, "Wow, take that."
And then I don't even know their section was even full, to be honest.
It wasn't by the second half. A lot of those folks left after the first half.
Yeah.
It was absolutely. I was one of the most enjoyable games I've been to, if not the most. It was definitely the most satisfying, and especially that first half, it just felt good.
See, it's funny. I appreciate the call. Why people forget that in '94 we were up 17-0 at the half, right? Raucous crowd, whooping Colorado pretty good. You remember what the final was in that game?
Not off the top of my head.
24-7.
Yeah.
Played the second half even 7-7. That's why I don't.
Yeah, you'll take that all day.
It doesn't move my neck because I get it, man. But I also get. That's why I like the way Joel worded it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey man, listen.
I
wanted the kill shot.
Yeah, I totally get it.
And guess what? No more Nebraska nice, so I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about a round of applause? That's my Rihanna moment. A standing ovation. Yeah, see, I like that. That's why I read it, because that's how I want the fans.
It's self-awareness.
I want that play. It was so nasty.
It was rabid.
I gotta tell you something Crawford said, but I have to say it off air.
I went down for I watched about the last half of the third quarter from the field.
Mhm.
Just because I was down, or I was up in the box and talking to our colleague Avery, and she's like, "You're gonna be mad at yourself if you don't spend some time on the field."
Hey, she cost me, by the way.
Why?
Man, she won, and I got caught up in the moment.
Yeah.
Right. I was just, I was doing whatever with Crawford and
Mhm.
Tyson Terry and Christian. So I was kind of having a moment, and I was yucking it up with Dom.
Mhm.
And Sasha like either called me over or somehow got my attention, and she's like, "Hey, can you get Will? I want him to do such and such with Avery."
Mhm.
So just instinctively, he's yucking it up.
Yeah.
A couple of these guys, he wasn't, but were smoked.
Yeah, they
I mean, smoked. So I was like, Will.
they started early.
I was like, "Hey, see such and such, such and such, such," and I like pushed him that way. He's like, "I got you, DB."
Yeah.
I was like, "No, now." So I kind of like pushed him over.
Yeah.
It would cost me about 17 drinks. 'Cause I'm walking off to go back in. He's getting ready to do the interview. He goes, "You think you're slick, don't you, DB?" I was like, "Gotta go. I'll be upstairs."
Time to work.
Yeah, that one's gonna cost me.
Let's get to Jay. Jay, what's going on? You got about a minute here. What's up? What's up, Jay? Go ahead.
Hello?
What up? What up? Hi, Jay. Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I'm sorry about that. How you doing, guys?
Good, good. How about you?
It's a great Husker Monday, I'm attempting to be very coy, guys.
Not like Colt McCoy, though, right?
I didn't understand what you said.
That's right. Go ahead. What's up?
I felt like it was a joke. It was funny. I've been trying to be coy because, I've been pretty excited for several years now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a diehard Husker fan. I hate to put the word diehard in front of it, but that's the only way I can express, how we feel about these Huskers. And Saturday was just, an amazing day for us, right? We're trying to be coy because we don't want to drag it out. We don't want to put ourselves into the national championship right now. But I will say that we definitely look better than any of us could have anticipated, except you, Damon, or anyone else that has seen practice. But I will say this though: second half, I didn't feel away. Even though I wanted them to dominate Colorado. I feel like I got everything I needed in the first two quarters. I feel like what I saw in the first quarter was Nebraska come out like a buzzsaw and buzz right over Colorado, and I saw Colorado lay down. I feel like in every sense of the word, they conceded. They said, "All right, you got us.
Yep.
We can't score. You beat us."
That's the sneaky part. They did.
Appreciate the call, Jay. We'll be back with Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald. Kicking off hour number 2 here on Herd Out Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-City. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula. We're joined now by Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald. What's up, Sam?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Good, good, good. I got to get my weather report, man. What's going on in the Cap City?
It's gorgeous.
Okay.
It's gonna get hot today, hot all week, but it's gorgeous right now. Good time for a walk.
I'm over the heat, man. I saw 90 on one of these days. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah. Pass. Not for me.
Sam, I gotta, man, I don't even know how I want to say this and not sound like a fan, but I am so glad. It started with Bear's comments last week. I was on here mad that people were like scared that he said it. And I'm like, he didn't say anything inflammatory. And, Coach Rule has been extremely confident this offseason. And he said it again. We're a good football team. I'm just excited that for once we have some leadership and some confidence, and he doesn't couch it, right? When Coach, he doesn't couch it and say, yeah, but, or it's early, but like he just says it, he believes it, and he moves on. And I'm just telling you, like as a player or as an assistant coach or a guy that wants to be led by somebody like that, there's power in it. And I think the fan base is getting ready to turn the corner with that too, right? Do you feel that the fan base is just gonna ride with the tone that our head coach is setting?
Yes, I do. I think what I wrote today is, I think the fan base is still ready and still willing to kind of turn around and buy all the way in. I think there's a younger segment of the fan base that's probably got one foot out the door, but is willing to come back in the door if it can feel like Saturday night felt. And so you get 2 more night games here at home. I think it's going to be fun. I think people are going to have a good time. And I think that's what younger fans want. And of course, the older fans have always been there. So yes, I think the fan base is ready to turn that corner. As I wrote today, I think a lot of people are. I think the national media wants Nebraska to be good. It's just obvious that's the case. I mean, they want that, and people are ready for some new stories. And Nebraska can potentially be a new story. They can win a lot of games in a row. They have a good enough team to beat all the teams that are in front of them before they head to Columbus. So, I think people are ready for something like that, and Nebraska appears ready to provide it. There could be a stub toe along the way, but they appear ready to do that from a physical and competitive standpoint.
No, I'm going to cut some of the words that he used short, but he basically, in pregame, Sam, he looked at me and he said, I talked about his confidence, and he said, we're a physical football team. We're good. We're going to be good tonight, and we're going to be physical. There was no, but we still got to line up and play it. We still got it. He didn't couch it with anything. He looked back over his shoulder as if to say, now just watch. And I couldn't help but how that made me feel. I'm like, you know what? I love it. It's about goddamn time we stop worrying about what the potential negative outcome could be and move towards what you actually know. And he said all along, this is a good football team. He said it.
Yeah. And I think there's reasons to believe why they would have thought that ahead of time. I think certainly they're old on defense, and they've certainly instilled a culture of physicality and toughness, and they've got better players on offense. Now, that didn't always bear itself out on Saturday night at times, right? But they're better. And by better, I mean, they're a year older at certain spots, and simultaneously they went out and got some good football players. And, a couple of those guys picked up penalties on Saturday night, but over the course of a season, I think everybody likes what Ja'Cory Barney's going to bring, so long as people stop committing penalties on his plays specifically. And
he could help those guys out by not getting so sideways. Once he starts getting back vertical, it's easier to block for those guys.
Yeah, and I was mentioning that to a colleague in the press box, and he kind of looked at me like I was nuts. And I said, look, part of it is when you're constantly switching directions like that, they don't know which side you're going to be on. That changes the nature of their blocks. One of the things that I appreciated, and Carter Nelson didn't play in this game, or if he did, he played sparingly. One of the things I appreciated in the first game about Carter is that when he got behind that block, he kind of slowed down and let Banks get around the block, and then he accelerated. And sometimes Ja'Cory Barney's so fast and so shifty that he's kind of moving in different directions a bunch, and that can be challenging. And so that probably set up one or two of the penalties. But I also thought the one on, I think it was Ramir Johnson, that's
terrible.
Like that call.
It was terrible. But that one wasn't near as bad as, and that was bad, but it wasn't as bad as Justin Evans. That was egregious, and I'm like,
that was a bad call too. And so the refs missed a few. They missed a few holding calls on Colorado.
At least a few, yeah.
But they missed 2 or 3 there, and they called a couple too. But yeah, it was an inconsistently called game for sure. I mean, it just wasn't called as well as I thought it could have been. But it's water under the bridge now. Nebraska's moving on. They're playing Northern Iowa, and then after Northern Iowa, they get Big Ten crews all the way out, and everybody knows that depending on the crew you get, that could be a great night or it could be a tough night. But at least they'll know all the crews, and there'll be a real clarity on who calls what, and they'll be able to clean up the execution a little bit.
Sam, speaking of kind of all the penalties and everything, how do you personally evaluate, especially the second half offensively, when You've got multiple kind of explosive plays called back because of penalties, some real, some imagined. You've got kind of just the disjointedness that comes along with having a penalty on seemingly every play, certainly every drive. Like, how do you personally kind of separate what's real versus what the final stats or score ends up being?
I really like some of the things they're trying to get done on the edges of the field where I do think they have advantage.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a swing pass to Ramir Johnson, and he got around the edge, and Thomas Fedoni had a really good block. I like the quick toss to Ramir that went for a touchdown but was called back because of a hold on Ben Scott. I like what they're trying to do with Ja'Cory Barney around the edges. So I like I like the fact that they're trying to spread defenses out. If defenses are going to pack in and they're going to say, hey, we're going to put 7 basically between the hash marks, 8. Colorado at times had people really jammed in there. I thought Nebraska countered with good plays. They just have to execute a little bit differently on some of those. But I like the play calls. I like the quick passing game that I think Nebraska has. I think, the downhill run game can always get better, but I think it's not bad. And then, we'll talk to Dylan, I think, Tuesday. And I don't know if he's going to get into specific plays, but I think he'll be able to say, yeah, there's a couple there where I could have done something different. I thought there were a couple plays in that game where, unless he was being asked to throw it, to that sort of check down, I thought there were some opportunities to throw a ball in there. But what he did is he took the coaching and he said, hey, don't make a turnover. Don't do something unnecessary. And that's fine. But I think he's got the ability to push the ball downfield more often. And we'll probably see that as the season goes on.
We probably would have been mad about that too as a fan base. Why are you throwing? It's like, you can't win for losing, man. These guys got to learn how to play with a lead. And I'm not down on Sam. I said it's such revision. It's just weird. It's like, we played in 94 and it's 17-0 at the half and the crowd is electric against Colorado. The game turns out to be 24-7. It was a 7, we played it as a scoreless half. So I don't care, right? Like, you hadn't won a game like that in forever. And I'm just not a big fan of apologizing for it. But I will say this,
right?
Learning how to play and coach and call plays with a lead takes time, right? Like, I didn't leave the second half and think, oh my gosh, sad as horror. I'm like, nah, you know what? Like, these guys, Coach Thomas, Coach Rule, they got to figure out what their guys can handle too. And let's not forget, Colorado has good players too. Like, that game, that game was incredibly physical. And Colorado waved the white flag halfway through the fourth. Like, let's not forget that, right? Like, they were like, okay, we just got to get home. Our guys are dropping like flies. Let's just get home. Like, there's something to that.
Yeah, they're going to have a hard game at Colorado State because I think they're going to be beat up.
Yeah, and coaches know, right?
Have an opportunity.
Coach Rule, he let you know how he felt real time when he said, hey, I first of all, I hope Shiloh and Shedeur are okay. Like, he's witnessing real time and he can hear the physicality. He can see that Colorado conceded. That's just the humility in a coach saying, man, they know they got their tails kicked. We know they got their tails kicked. I just hope everybody's okay. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, that's sad to me. That's satisfying. If I'm a coach, I'd rather watch you bleed slow than decapitate you. It sounds a little sadistic. It just feels better, right? Like, and I think he witnessed that.
Yeah, they pretty much said no more at the end of the game. And I'm sure if you watched Deion Sanders' press conference, which was 13 minutes long, and not bad.
Yeah, it really wasn't.
I think he would have been very
it was much better than I thought it was going to be.
Better than Shedeur's.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Shedeur's wasn't great. But Deion, his presser was I think, what's the right word? Mature. And, like, he's, older than me, so of course he was mature. But
it was pretty self-aware, I thought.
It
wasn't bad.
Dude,
he didn't try to.
He saw.
Yeah, I think he just saw that his team got beat up physically, And I think Sanders, respects when he sees a team that did what Nebraska did. So, and then also didn't try to rub it in at the end or make a big point or whatever. They just, but yeah, it was a successful game. I think they'll probably look back on it very fondly years from now. But I'm sure there's also a sense of, okay, turn the page, get healthy this week, play your butts off this week, and then, you know what? You got a pretty good team coming to town. Illinois is not bad. They're better than I thought they were going to be, for sure. And, beating Kansas, I don't think Kansas was a ranked team. I would not have ranked them, personally. I'm not sure
they turned the ball over like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they lost actually some players from last year. They're not as good as they were last season, but that's still a good win. And Brett Bielema didn't just fall off the back of a truck when it comes to coaching. He knows how to coach a physical football team. So like Brett Bielema will not just hand a game to Nebraska. So like the challenges become real. Nebraska's not going to just walk all over the teams that they have, after this week. And maybe they won't walk over Northern Iowa. I don't know.
We're talking with Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, do you think we have – I kind of want to put this in perspective a little bit because last year, or even really at any point over the last, decade, if I had told you Nebraska was going to get a punt blocked, miss a field goal, have 12 penalties, and not score in the second half –
the third down conversion rate was also poor.
Is in 0% of those games would you have predicted Nebraska win, much less win by 3 scores? Like,
right?
Are we kind of glossing over that because it just like it was so dominant in every other fashion? Like, I don't know that everybody's kind of processing. Hey, Nebraska played really well. They still overcame a lot of things that have doomed them in the past.
They converted 25% of their third downs and won by 2 scores.
Yeah, I would say that I'm not glossing over it. I think there's certainly issues to correct on special teams almost immediately. What I would say is that when you have this level of defense, that can make its own plays and score its own points, you just, and I'm not saying that they feel this way, but I've watched enough to know that they've got a little bit of a cushion. The 2009 Nebraska team was one of the most mistake-prone teams I can ever remember. But they won, I think, 10 games because their defense was incredible. And they made all kinds of mistakes. And they lost the game because of them. They lost to Iowa State because of all the mistakes they made. But, their defense, Nebraska's defense, is really good. And so it covers up some of the mistakes. And it makes you, Iowa knows this story too. Iowa's offense last year was the worst offense I think I've ever seen. But they won a lot of games because they were good in the other 2 phases. I think special teams is going to be a concern. It was a concern of mine before the season. I wrote about it a lot. Have not ever been sold on the punter. He had 2 great punts, and he had a couple other punts that weren't very good. They just weren't. And then he had 1 block. And then the kicker missed a field goal. He struggles on hashes. Yeah, you probably got to put him in the middle of the field because otherwise he struggles with pulling the ball. He just does. And so, there's a whole bunch of things to work through there, and they'll have to figure that stuff out as they go. But I do think they have a kind of defense that gives them a little bit of margin of error, and the offense is better than it was last year. I think there's things they can do on offense that they did not have the capability of doing last year because they didn't have the bodies. They weren't healthy and they weren't talented enough.
Yeah, they're going to be pretty good on offense, I think. I don't worry about that at all. And it's 2 things, just listening to you talk. Number one, the position group that plays most like their coach right now is probably the running backs because I think Coach Barthel is tough. He's demanding. He's actually been able to reach Ramir on a personal level, which I think is great because I think East Coast guys are different. But my favorite thing, Sam, is, and you're like, man, why do you like Coach Rule so much? The team is just like I want to be as a person, which is just like him as a coach. You're going to have some flaws. You're not perfect, but you're confident. People are better. You want people to be better the more time they spend with you. You want to go to work every day, and you want to leave something better than you found it. Like those things to me are kind of who I think Coach Rule is as a person. It's what I would like to be. And you're starting to see it with his team, too. They're not perfect, but they don't make excuses. They go to work every day. They're tough, and they don't apologize for thinking they're good. Like, that's like life 101, right? That it seems like that's what this team is turning into. And it's no coincidence that appears to be their coach's, it's kind of his DNA.
Yeah, they're fun too.
And he's fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
Like,
fun. You could tell they're having fun, and Colorado didn't have any fun on Saturday night. I think a lot of times Colorado is a program that's juxtaposed to other teams, and other teams might be better than Colorado, but by God, Colorado's over there having fun. It's Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and it's the whole thing.
I think it stems from
Saturday
pressure.
Night, Colorado did not appear to be having any fun.
Nope.
And Nebraska appeared to be having a lot of fun. And that contrast was stark. Colorado got its butt handed to it twice last year by Oregon and Washington State. And Oregon seemed like they were having fun last year, and Washington State didn't really care. They just hammered them. But Nebraska seemed like it was having fun. And that's something that people see on TV, and that's something that resonates with recruits. It felt like a physical party. And I'm guessing they'll get a couple of recruits off of what happened on Saturday night, whether they're 25 or 26 guys. I'm guessing they'll get a couple of 25 guys because, even if those guys could be a part of something else, like a Texas, they may want to have more fun at Nebraska. It's just possible. And Texas looks like the best team in the country based on what they did at Michigan. So we'll see. Maybe Texas is ready to go on a 5-year run that gets every good player in Texas to go to Austin. I don't know.
I don't know about that, Sam. I mean, I get where you would say that because they did hammer a pretty good Colorado State team. I don't know about pretty good, but that was better than they're better than 52-0. But I will say this about Michigan, and I said this last week, and I was dead serious. How is Michigan going to score? Like, I said that out loud, and that's a bad match. A downhill, fast, good tackling team like that is a recipe for disaster for Michigan because they like to do the dictating from a physicality standpoint. Like, that just wasn't going to work. It was
right.
I mean, Texas is good. I don't know who's good, right? I'm Oregon. They're trending, right? Maybe Boise's better. They weren't the week before, though. I think we like Texas.
Georgia seems
Bama
good.
struggled. Yeah. I do think Georgia's good, though.
Yeah, I think Georgia and Texas are good. I don't know about anybody else.
Who else is in it? So you know what's interesting? You know who maybe
Ohio State's very, very talented.
They're super talented.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see how their physicality carries. Because I think Texas is physical.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see how physical. I think Ohio State's capable, but they don't look like that when they play. Texas does.
Texas is physical and they're athletic. And the thing that Michigan was missing, and it's surprising to me, they don't have like a big receiver. They don't have a Braylon Edwards who used to play there 20 years ago. They don't have that guy. They have a lot of smaller guys, and then they've got Donovan Edwards who's a running back and a big guy, and maybe he should play more receiver because they don't have the same level of line, and it's going to be hard for him to make a lot of hay in the middle of the field. I think they've got to maybe line him up outside and give him some chances out there. And then Michigan, because of somebody said this to me, I had asked, why did Michigan go get a transfer quarterback? And somebody noted, well, they didn't know who their head coach was going to be until way into January because Harbaugh hadn't really made a decision. They had nothing to sell to people. They didn't know who their head coach was going to be. They didn't.
The whole signed contract, non-signed contract was kind of weird with Coach Moore too.
No, it's not a good look, and they obviously need to go out and sign a quarterback because the guy that they have in there is I don't know, maybe the 15th or 16th best guy in the Big Ten. Like it's not commensurate with the level of that program. Ohio State has like 4 guys better than that guy. So, and they're just sitting there waiting to play. So I would say, Michigan's going to have a long year. But again, I would not have, I don't have a poll anymore. I wouldn't have ranked Michigan in the top 20. They might have been in the top 20, my top 25 or something like that. But I didn't pick them for the playoff. And I had them losing 4, and they might lose 5 now because
I thought
the way they looked against Texas, it wasn't pretty.
I thought quietly that was a good win for Michigan State.
It was surprising.
He's
a good coach.
It's going to fly under the radar like ho hum, but I mean, when you're trying to change the trajectory of a program, that's a good win in East Lansing, and he's a good coach.
He's a very good coach. Yep, and he learned from a good coach too. So, and from many good coaches, including Chris Peterson and Mike Riley and others. Like, the guy knows offense really well, and so Michigan State should be able to score. I don't know that they're more than a 5-win team, but you never know. Like, the one thing you can tell is don't think anything about last year as it pertains to this year's Big Ten. outside of Ohio State being good again.
Yeah.
Nothing appears. And Rutgers is good. Rutgers will run the ball, and they'll do the things that I think we thought they were going to do before the season. But Illinois looks better than they did. If Purdue beats Notre Dame this weekend, which they could, look out there. Iowa, I don't know. I mean, Iowa can actually run the football, and they probably should have won that game.
Oh, yeah.
And they gave up a deep, long pass.
That second half that might have been about as un-Iowa as I've seen in that second half.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, their defense just kind of fell apart, but they can run the ball. So you can't count on anything. We'll learn a little bit about UCLA and Indiana this weekend when they play each other. I don't know what we'll learn, but I don't think Indiana's bad. I don't think they're bad. I think that coach is super motivated, and so we don't know exactly what this season's going to look like. I don't think Minnesota's very good, but we'll see. There's a lot to learn this specific week, and the week after about the Big Ten. The back half of September, we'll learn some things as we go into October.
That's Sam McEwen from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you again next week.
We appreciate you. Bye.
Thanks, Sam.
More Herd at Sports Radio coming up next. What if they decide to go all 300 and say, give them nothing? Because that's kind of what was on the table for Colorado on Saturday. That's DBM, Robbie Lilly. You're listening to Herd at Sports Radio. I thought it was really interesting. I was thinking back about kind of the narrative after the game last year, right? There was a lot of hand wringing, a lot of kind of consternation about, well, if Colorado can turn it around this fast, why can't we? Right? Because at that point, it's 2-0. Colorado had been a dumpster fire program.
We were fielding calls on, did we ever seriously take a look at Deion?
Yeah,
I remember.
Those were real phone calls. Well, did we really look at Deion? Why didn't we look at Deion? And I was like, well, A, I think he's a bad culture fit, and B, I don't think what you're seeing right now is real. And how many games have they won since they beat Nebraska last year?
Well, until last week, they had only won 1 game since last October.
Yeah. They've won 3 games since that Nebraska game last year. 3. 2 last year, and then in week 1.
Yeah. Excuse me. I was talking to you off air. I think what I was trying to convey to Sam is, and why I'm kind of drawn to Coach Rule is the way that he coaches is, and the DNA of his team is how I want to be as a person, right?
100%.
Little flawed, very confident. I want people to be to come out better being around me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have a little fun. You will work, and you live with the results. Like that. That's his team. Is his personality. He's demanding
to a T.
He's confident. He plays hard, but he works hard.
Mm-hmm. He knows he's got flaws, but he's always trying to improve.
And he'll say them out loud.
Yeah, he acknowledges them. And he says the quiet part out loud.
That's how his team is.
And when he's confident, he's not afraid to tell you.
And I don't know, man. I'm just not it's so in line with how I think. It even makes me mad. What do I always say to you when so people will say things and they'll go,
then they couch it.
I hate that.
Yeah.
How'd you know I was going to say that?
Because
I can't stand.
Because you say it to me sometimes, and usually it's when I'll say, just because I'm saying this doesn't mean I mean that. Right?
I'm like,
because I know people think that way.
Well, people got to stop doing that.
Yeah, and that's your thing. It's like, hey, you don't have to explain it to people. You need people to expect to be better. That's usually what you say.
That is my, like I would get.
I'll spend some time around you.
I would get smoked on that hill.
Yeah.
It sound
not as bad as Principal Smokes Shador, but
like we always make excuses for other people not handling situations better.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not on you, right? Like it just be authentic, put it out there, see what happens,
and live with it.
But you don't always have to be like, well, and I know some people may hear like
it's the catering to the lowest common denominator.
Oh, using my you're getting me. That's what I like about Coach Rule.
Yeah, because he's not about that.
That's why I went to bat for Bear.
He goes, hey, I'm here.
Stop apologizing for that.
He goes, I'm up here.
Yeah,
this is where everybody else needs to meet me. Otherwise, we're not going to get along very well. I'll wish you the best, but it's going to be time for you to move on.
I was just having this conversation with DJ the other day. I can't even remember. He was either in Nashville or South Bend, one of the two. We were just talking, and it's just like,
speaking of Nashville, they're doing all right.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be willing to say things to people, and it may not be super popular in the moment, and may hurt a few feelings,
or really put yourself out there.
But you have to be willing to go there.
So
you have to be willing to go there.
There is I think the reason people don't, and especially as it applies to the Nebraska fan base, but I think it's on an individual level too, is people aren't willing or don't want to deal with the consequences if it doesn't go their way.
That's exactly what he was saying.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you put it out there, and I know this very personally because I was like this for a long time. It took extensive counseling to not be like that anymore. But it was, hey, if I don't say the thing that I want, or if I don't put myself out there, or if I couch it, then I don't have to deal with the noise if I miss. If I shoot my shot and miss, I don't have to deal with the noise if I don't tell people I'm going to shoot my shot, right? Nebraska, they're letting you know, hey, we're shooting our shot. We're a good football team. Our defensive line is going to eat you up. Good luck. Our freshman quarterback is going to make plays. Good luck.
He just says, hey,
we're going to run the ball down your throat. Good luck.
Hey, we got good players.
Yeah.
If you believe you have good players.
Not diamonds in the rough, NFL players.
Oh, don't even get me started on the whole recruiting thing, right? He's laid that out there too. But see, I say all that to say, that's how the team plays.
100%. They play like they are not afraid of the noise.
And they know that they're going to make mistakes, but it's okay, right? Go back, correct them. Correct the correctables. He slid that little gem in there.
Yep. Which I like better than control what you can control. I like the correctables.
Because that's life. That's
all.
You're not always going to say the right thing. You're not always going to do the right thing in the moment.
What do you do after?
Yeah. Go.
What does it look like after it doesn't go your way?
That's how they play.
And if you're ready to deal with that, then it frees you up to a great extent. I
was waiting for a yeah but Saturday night after when he was talking.
Really?
There was none.
Yeah.
He walked off.
Let's get to our guy, Denny.
See you at opening kick.
Let's get to our guy, Denny. Has some thoughts on post-game comments. What's going on, Denny?
Denny, what's up?
What's up, fellas?
How we living?
How we living?
Wait. It's almost like we know each other. What's up, buddy?
So first of all, I want to say that I watched the game from the Denver airport because we were traveling back from Alaska, right? And that was an interesting experience in itself because I was wearing my Husker gear, right?
Yeah.
And I had I'm gonna guess 8-year-old call me a effing Cornhusker in a bar in Denver.
Hey,
and I was with the Matlocks.
We're raising our kids right, man. You know what I mean?
Right?
Jeez.
And I'm going, yeah, culture. That's a good thing. Culture. I get it. But here's also, before I get into the comment section of the post-game pressers, in Alaska, there's Husker fans everywhere. I couldn't believe it. I had to snap some pictures and stuff that'll be hitting out. But even license plate Huskers, and I'm like, it felt like I was just maybe in I don't know, Council Bluffs. I mean, other than this obvious, but it was like, okay, we got some Huskers here. It was a good time. And you guys, Damon, you know me. I'm a cerebral person, and I don't know the X's and O's. I was never an athlete. I was so slow, still am, probably slower. But I was listening to the post-game press conference, both Shedeur and Dion, and they were both talking about protection, right? And I mean, they were trying to be falsely humble because I mean, there's only one place where protection is provided, and that's the line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could get it out of the tight ends or whatever. But isn't this the same protection they used NIL money to buy?
Yeah.
Isn't this their fault?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just
I just want to hear you guys' thoughts a little bit on that, and I'm going, wait a minute, you paid for this.
Well, no, it was.
You got the receipt.
It's so what's funny about that DP is I wonder when he was kind of sideways at that presser, the whole bolstered thing, and let's just say improved.
If he knew they weren't very good.
If he knew they weren't very good. That's what I'm thinking.
Travis Hunter knew. He was playing that video game and he goes, yeah, it's about right. Still trash. Like he knew.
Oh, that flew under the radar though, because it was in the offseason. Yeah.
Like it's not like it was a secret to them.
So do you get the sense that Coach Sanders doesn't really know his team? Because he talked about wanting to run the ball. Then I listened to him at the presser, and I was like, he's just reading. I'm like, you saw what happened. Just talk about it. Like he comes across. It's the whole reading the back page of the book thing. Somebody tweeted to us like he reminds you of the kid that does the report, but he's only read the back page.
Yeah,
that's kind of how it seems.
Yeah, it was really interesting because it seems like the apple never falls far from the tree.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it's true with Coach Rule because I want them to have his personality.
Danny, we appreciate the call. Coming up next, we got Michael Severe with the Jet Award Foundation. Coming up next here on Herd Out Sports Radio. Welcome back to Herd Out Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 as we are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are joined now by the one and only Michael Severe from the Jet Foundation. Michael, what's going on, bud?
Well, I appreciate you guys playing that cut there.
That's all that.
The guy who made that call, who's now the play-by-play guy for them, his wife told me a long time ago to not chew gum as violent as I chew gum because
bless her heart. Bless her heart.
She gave me that tip a long time ago at a club in New Orleans. Yeah.
So how come you didn't listen?
I don't know. Because you know me. I mean, come on.
Good point.
Why don't I listen? I don't know. That's a hell of a question. I think you could ask a lot of people that question and be like, I don't know why he doesn't listen. I listen now more than I've ever listened before, but I still chew gum like a horse, like she said I should.
Hey, of the I didn't have that down on my bingo card of things that could happen.
Yeah.
Was it the getting the punt blocked, the missing the easy field goal, I don't know, the 4 of 12 on third down conversion, the no points in the second half? If you look back and you're like, man, and they still kicked their tail, what was your write that down moment? It didn't matter. And you usually rack up L's moment.
Yeah, I just remember sitting there in the third quarter thinking exactly what you're saying. All this stuff is going wrong, and Matt Rule is going to be able to celebrate a victory and then have a whole week. You know how you coaches love
coach it up,
rip it up, and so that's great. But I'll tell you something. I have never, and I had a gambler tell me this a long time ago who was a big live bettor. He says 90% of the time he could watch a game in the first quarter and know exactly what the rest of the game is going to be like. This is the first game I ever remember watching, especially in that stadium, where the first 3 plays I knew it was over. I mean, literally. You had a knockdown pass, a drop pass, and on third down, I had my binoculars on James Williams because that left tackle, I'm like, that kid's a freshman. He's never been in this kind of environment ever. There's no way he stays with him. And James ran right by him, and Ty went right up the middle, and I was like, yeah, we knew they couldn't block him. We knew it all week long. We talked about it, but once you saw it happen, you knew it was over. But yeah, tons of stuff to work on, and the field goal battery from the snapper to the
Yeah,
kick. Not the holder. The holder's good.
An issue. Snapping is definitely an issue.
Yeah, I was waiting to tape an interview with Coach Rule a few weeks ago, and we were watching them just kind of go through the whole process. They were out there for like 40 minutes. We watched them. And I'll tell you, out of the probably 20 snaps, 17 of them were bad, either low, high, or wide. Yeah. And so that's scary to think about. But the great thing is you got a punter who catches everything, who does a great job of getting it down as best he can. So that saves him. But yeah, you got to be able to make a 32-yard field. As much, you know how I feel about Tristan. I want to see Tristan succeed. I love his grandfather. I talk to him all the time. I don't know, man. You can't have 32-yard misses. You just can't.
Yeah. Michael, I know you watched line play where you're watching these games really, really closely. Yeah. A lot of what I heard after the game was some consternation about the offensive line, especially in the second half. How did you think they played overall? Because the commonality among the fan base is that the offensive line play wasn't very good.
DB, if I ask you a question, will you be honest with me?
Yes.
Okay. What the hell is up with under center single back? They haven't ever run that. Then all of a sudden they put that in for this week and they can't run it. The offensive lineman didn't know what they were doing. The quarterback seemed like he didn't know what he was doing. Nobody knew how to line up. So I think they put some extra stuff on that offensive line because there were things that I thought looked really good. I thought that really good. And then other times where I don't even know what they know what they're doing. So I think they added a bunch of stuff this week for Colorado specifically, and they weren't ready for it.
You know what I think? You know what's funny about that? What was my favorite formation?
I
like one back.
Yeah.
Because my favorite plays were 42-48 counter trap, which we could run it out of that look, and it's tough.
How often did you practice that? How often did you practice that?
Oh, 225 times a week, probably.
Right. I doubt they practice that from what it looked like.
Yeah, you can't. You're right. You just can't sprinkle it in. That's 100% true. Let me ask you something about like rhythm, because I guess we could read the definition, but I feel like you really know what it is when you see it. Mm-hmm. How much of what you felt like was going on with Nebraska's offensive rhythm was messed up by the flow of the game?
Well, I can tell you this. In the second half, and I went back and I worked on this. So I got home around 1. I rewatched the first half. I got into the third quarter. I was just exhausted. I turned it off. But I got up at 5 a.m. before doing a little thing I do in the morning and on Sunday, and 135 yards is where I got to with lost yardage on penalties. So they gained those yardage and they lost them because of penalties. There's no way you can sustain a rhythm when you have a 69-yard run call back, when you have a 19-yard play call back, when you have a 14-yard, a 7-yard. They kept having them call back over and over again. So I understand. At the same time, I'm also in the mind of Matt Rule a little bit, saying, look, man, let's just get through this. Let's just take this win, get through this, move on, beat Northern Iowa, get in the Big Ten play. So I understand that too. And as you know, I'm not a huge fan of the guy who calls plays. And so I think that's an issue too. I think they have an issue at that spot. So all those things together saying, look, you won 28-10. Rhythm was defined by the officials who called way too many penalties when they shouldn't have. And Nebraska probably should have had 42 points without the officials getting involved.
Yeah, and Michael, you bring up the 135 yards and the 42 points. If this ends up 42-10, Nebraska's got 470 yards of offense instead of 335. None of us are having this conversation.
Oh, I didn't even throw that in. Winning a game by 3 scores and you had less than 400 yards offense and you had a punt blocked.
Yeah.
And like there was a lot of anomalies.
Yeah. And 12 penalties.
And 3 of 12 on third down.
And on third down, the third down play is concerning, right? I look back at that first week against UTEP and God, what were they? 73%, something crazy, right? They were the top of the two. They were second in the country by the end of Saturday night last week when I went and looked at the stats. So they had amazing. I know that this game in the second half isn't like they're going to play. I don't think they're going to play the rest of the year. That was a unique situation in a unique atmosphere against a team that you just wanted to get out of there. You didn't care about putting up a whole bunch more points. It was just a different kind of thing. But I do understand that you're going to look back and go, well, damn, they didn't even rush for 200 yards against a team that's not stout up front. Well, that's obviously the offensive line's issue. Well, you throw that 69-yard run from Amir Johnson in there, and all of a sudden they're at 250. So,
well, and when I mean, DB's talked about this a lot, but a lot of that short pass, swing pass game, the kind of the touch pass, I think, to Barney while he's coming across, like that's all really rushing yardage.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, so it's start adding those things up and it gets different in a hurry.
Go ahead.
I've gotten to the point now, DB, where like I watched the Broncos play yesterday, and I'm a fan of Sean Payton. He brought the city a Super Bowl, and I admire. I think he does a great job coaching. If I saw one more 4-yard pass or one more 3rd and 7 throwing it 3 yards, the game of football in general is becoming a game at times that I hate to watch because we used to throw to the sticks. We used to do things that were physical. Now we're trying to spread 52.5 yards or whatever the length of the side of the horizontal part of the field is. That drives me nuts. I'm like, throw the ball down the field. Make the defensive back make a play. You're going to get an interference. You're going to get a catch. Rarely do you get an interception in that situation. Throw the ball down the field. I feel the same way about Nebraska. But watching the NFL yesterday, I saw too often where it's all swing passes and all that stuff, and it drives me nuts.
You don't get those crossing routes with Barney and Lloyd without that philosophy in it, though. Do you know what I mean? But I do feel like
where were the crossing routes, though, DB? How many do they actually have?
Well, that's what you were basically seeing Barney on those little shallow drags.
Yeah.
I just wish, and he'll learn. Like once you get there and you get to about the middle of the field, as opposed to getting to the opposite hash with the run, just get back vertical. Then those guys will have an easier time blocking for you too, because it's not as left to right. It's a lot more north to south. What do you think happens first? Do you think Nebraska learns to manage the emotions of having successful days, like, hey, learning how to win? Or do you think they'll stub their toe from not understanding the process?
No, I think just listening to the way Matt Rhule preaches it so much, and then listening to the assistant coaches. Dvorak is one of my favorite coaches on his staff.
He's a stud.
I just like him, and he keeps everything grounded, right? I think he does a great job. I think all of them fall in line. It's a lot like the military for them, from what I notice. You got one voice at the top who's saying all these things, and everybody just reiterating what he's saying, right? And I feel that, and so I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll be like Bo Pelini was the ultimate high. And then, oh my God, we have a bad practice during a week, and then all of a sudden you have a bad game.
It's just hard to be super sensitive and hyper paranoid. Like he had that weird concoction.
Yeah. And everybody was against them and all that stuff. And so it's tough, but I don't think so. Like I knew Notre Dame, and I talked to Robbie during the game. I knew Notre Dame would come out obviously without what we thought, and I thought that Northern Illinois could cover the 22.5 or whatever else. But right away, Northern Illinois came out and ran the ball right at them, and I went, oh, my God, they're not ready. Yeah. I don't think we'll ever – I hope not. I don't think we'll ever watch a Nebraska game and say they're not ready. They're not prepared for this. I don't – he doesn't let one thing go. You know, every little thing you bring up to him, he's always in there turning over rocks and just pulling stuff out. So I can't imagine him letting that happen.
That's our guy, Michael Severe, Executive Director of the Jet Award Foundation. Michael, we appreciate it as always.
That's a great setup you got there too, bud.
I know.
Like that?
All of our other guests to figure out your camera and mic situation.
Look at my guy up here. Look, you love that. Love that, right? Remember when he was running for the Heisman? Yeah. Give it to Ed Oliver, baby.
Hey, Shane, give that guy the big segment next time.
That's our guy, Michael.
See you,
we'll see you later.
See you later. Bye.
We've got Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports coming up next year on Herd Out Sports Radio. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Herd Out Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are efforting Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports, talk a little college football. But in the meantime, I got to remind you, if you're having some issues with your foundation, your concrete, your basement, you need to effort EP Foundation Repair. They are local experts, and they have over 25 years of experience, so they know how to help you out. They use advanced methods and materials to provide long-lasting solutions. Give them a call, 402-588-5174, or visit epconcrete.com.
.com.
That's one of those old school commercials right there.
Yeah. So, speaking of the reading, like the last page of the book, for a book report. Did you notice the press conference? And he's just kind of
yeah.
And then, but he did say something early in the week on his coach's show that I brought up on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, well, he seems to throw to his right an awful lot.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska so far is a little right-handed. Now, I don't believe the charts necessarily that I look at, because I would count, Jalen Lloyd's pass is deep left. I would count some of the crossing routes that go from left to right that they run like right to left. So, but they are fairly right-handed.
That is interesting. We'll get into that more here in a little bit. Right now, we've got Dennis Dodd. He covers college football on a national level for CBS Sports. Dennis, how are you this morning?
What's up, guys? I'm good.
Dennis, buddy, how you been?
Great. Fresh off a trip to Michigan. Capped off the night watching the Huskers. And people in the hotel bar were outwardly rooting for Nebraska.
I didn't get a chance. You were moving so fast in Indy. I didn't get a chance to corral you. I don't even know if I would, though. You haven't been missing many gym sessions, man. You look fantastic. If nothing else, from afar, man. Good on you.
Well, I appreciate that. If that translated into a raid, it'd be even better. But I appreciate it.
Let's start right here. Let's stay in the Big Ten. And in Big Ten country, the obviously the preseason rankings, they got to shuffle. But when you look at this conference right now, what are some things that you think for sure if you had to try to predict trajectory?
Well, that USC is going to contend for the title. I think the turnaround defensively there is one of the better stories in the early season, and I know it was Utah State on Saturday, but I think I read where that was their first shutout since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way they played, USC played against LSU, just manly football, physical, won a close game, got better quarterback play than LSU, and so I think when we talk about Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan, not so much now, that you have to put USC in the conversation, because I think that was the piece that was missing. If they can ever get physical enough in both lines, be the anti-Colorado, then, and get quality quarterback play after the loss of a Heisman Trophy winner, they've had all those things so far, guys. So that, and I think I can't be remiss. I think Nebraska is going to be a great story this year. They're definitely going to the postseason. It hit me in July, like right before Big Ten Media Days. I started looking at the schedule. Why can't they be 6-1 or better heading into Ohio State on, I think it's October 25th? So this, the Nebraska story will continue to be a good one.
Dennis, another team that kind of got brought into that title discussion in the Big Ten early in the season was an Oregon team that everybody kind of assumed would be built to withstand the transition from the Big Ten. After 2 weeks, though, the team we thought maybe was least prepared in USC has sort of taken that mantle from Oregon. What have you seen from the Ducks that concerns you versus you think, just a slow start to the season?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a close game against Idaho. Now, Idaho's proven it's probably better than, in any given year, Idaho isn't a factor. And then they go to Wyoming and control things and almost won or played Oregon into the fourth quarter. Boise is a rivalry game for them, but I didn't expect it to be up and down the field. I'll tell you what, Ashton Giante, I think that's how you say it. Giante, I think, is the last name.
Yeah, he can flat out tote it, can't he?
He can play. He had 19 touchdowns last year. He leads ball with 9 so far this year. I'm trying to figure out. And since the beginning of last year, I think he's averaged 12 points per game. Like, just throw him on the field, he's good for 2 touchdowns. So he's undersized back. He's good. So that, and Oregon had never beaten Boise in the history of the series. So that was big. But I didn't expect it to be a shootout where they would struggle. So I don't know. That's a big question mark going into week 3. Where is the Oregon we were promised really all of last year, the last couple of years, and going into this year where they were going to be a contender with Ohio State. I don't know if I have that answer right.
Okay, so how do we feel? Let's stay right there and get out of the conference, but how do we feel about Bama? Right? I think people will look at the score and they'll think, oh, that was impressive, but I think they scored like 28 points in about 7 minutes in the fourth quarter to break that thing open. Early, kind of, are there concerns? Is it still just week 2? Like, kind of where are you with that?
I feel better about them now than I did in week 2 last year. And if people forget that, they lost to Texas by 10 at home. It was in total disarray. I mean, by Alabama standards, total disarray. The Alabama offensive line couldn't stop you and me. Jalen Milroe was a flop. He couldn't play. They had 2 interceptions. And so, they changed coaches. And now the biggest question is, what about Alabama? The sidecar to that is, what about Kalen DeBoer? I think they're okay. We're going to find out in 2 or 3 weeks with Georgia coming to town. We'll find out. I think they're a playoff team. I think if they go 10-2, they'll be in. I don't know if they'll win the league, but I think they're going to be okay. I watched the fourth quarter Saturday after I got done. You turn it on and, whoa, 14-13, what's going on? And that's the type of game it was last year. If you remember that 17-3 game down in Tampa, where it was almost a loss.
They blamed that one on the rain, not to go all Milli Vanilli.
Yeah. And so I think part of that is South Florida was going to be one of those low-key, improved teams. I think they're pretty good. Shouldn't be 14-13 in the fourth quarter, but they got the job done. I think their running backs with Jam Miller are really good. Jalen Miller, I think, at some point is really going to blossom as a star because of the leadership and coaching of Kalen DeBoer.
Apparently, Tennessee can play some defense. We'll see if it's sustainable. But if you had to push your chips in of teams we think are pretty good that have our attention early, you like Missouri or Tennessee better?
I like Tennessee just because Nico is so dynamic. He looks like
all 6'6", 228 of him. Jiminy Christmas!
Yeah. And they need to put some weight on him. If you really look at him, he's super skinny.
Yeah.
He's 6'6", he's that 228 spreads out quite a bit. But once he gets some muscle on him, what he looks like to me is a leader. As at that young age, I guess I don't know if he's categorized as sophomore or freshman, but because he plays his 3rd career start, he looks like a leader. Gosh, can he play? I like Tennessee because I think they're on the upswing in year 3. It's going to be hard for Missouri to duplicate what they did last year, 11-2.
That schedule is going to work out, though.
Yeah, the schedule is friendly, but I still like Tennessee. To me, they've got more dudes, and that's just in the beginning of week 3. I could be absolutely wrong, but it seems to me like they've got more players.
We're talking with Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. Dennis, what's your level of concern for Notre Dame? They get the good win in week 1 against Texas A&M. Obviously, get upset by Northern Illinois this week. What do you make of that team and where they stand for the rest of the season?
Yeah, how about that? 3rd year in a row, losing at home to at least a 14-point underdog. And it's the first time a MAC team has ever beaten a top 5. They were 0-51. I didn't see this coming at all. I thought Northern Illinois was just kind of middle of the pack in the MAC. They're hanging around. The only thing I can figure out, because Notre Dame has better players, they just do.
Mm-hmm.
It's still college. The players still overlook teams, and you wake up in the fourth quarter. Holy crap! We're up 1, or we struggled with this team, and now we can't screw this up. Well, they put a drive together, and the kicker, who I think missed 2 the week before, hits a 51-yarder to win it, and it's damn embarrassing. A guy, Marcus Freeman, is one of only 2 coaches in Notre Dame history, guys, that won at least 9 games his first 2 years on the job. Can you name the other one? You can't. Believe me, you can't. It's Charlie White.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. So,
pretty
but
legit.
so there's that, and then okay, what about this pattern now? And look, they can still, having sat on it for a couple of 48 hours, I think they can still get to the playoff. They'd have to go 11-1. At 10-2 with that schedule, they give the committee reason to leave them out because they lost to Northern Illinois. But they've got to be big Northern Illinois boosters right now. They want NIU to win the match. It's like a couple of years ago when K-State lost to Tulane at home. Oh, that's terrible. Well, K-State won the Big 12. They weren't going to be in the playoff, but they were 10-4. My point is that helped inside the room. That definitely helped their strength of schedule. So that's one on the bingo card we didn't have before the season. Northern Illinois helping Notre Dame's schedule strength.
All right, if now they may all turn out to be okay, but if you're gonna have the all careful, this could be fool's gold team. Yeah. Are you taking Penn State, Miami, or Oklahoma
to get in the playoff?
That maybe a little bit of early fool's gold.
That are overrated. Miami, Oklahoma, and who was the third?
Penn State.
Well, throw Miami out because I think they're real. I'm intrigued by Penn State because Andy Kotelnicki, the new offensive coordinator, has adapted to Drew Aller, the quarterback at Kansas. Kotelnicki was known before that as kind of this guy that's maxed out with dual threat quarterbacks. But Drew Aller isn't that; he's a statue. But they've got weapons, and he's leaning on their weapons. He had a great line, and I forget what it was. The offensive coordinator at Penn State over the weekend, like, don't screw up stupid or something like that. Like they go with their speed players, Singleton, and the receivers, like just get the ball to the playmakers, and they do that. So I'll say Oklahoma. They were kind of
they got off to such a good start against Houston. You're like, whoa, this might be Blood City.
They're kind of playing with their food against Houston. They have a tough schedule.
Yeah,
and a new quarterback. So there's bound to be a downturn at some point when you throw a new guy in there. So I'll say Oklahoma. That's a good one. That's a tough one.
Dennis, I'm curious about the Big 12. They've got 3 teams in the AP poll, 12, 13, 14, and Utah, Oklahoma State, Kansas State right in a row, the 3 teams that were picked to finish at the top of that conference. In your mind, have any of those stood out to you more than others? Or you still think that's a pretty much a 3-dog race?
Yeah, Oklahoma State, I think, has to be favored now after surviving Saturday. I don't think they got very good quarterback play from Bowman. I didn't see the game, but I think it was okay. They came back and won in overtime against Arkansas, and that's a good thing. I'm not sold on Arizona. Kansas, I think, took themselves out, at least perceptively. Kansas State's one to watch. And then, Utah, obviously, we don't have I don't know, do we? We have a update on Cam Rising?
Not yet. Gosh, it's terrible.
I love the guy, but he trips over sidewalk cracks and gets injured. He's a great guy. But if you don't have him, I was told before the season, like, if he gets injured again, they're done. They got nobody behind him. So I got to go with Oklahoma State right now, just because they fit the profile of Big 12 until that changes, that you can outscore everybody and get there. And I love it because I said before the season, somebody from the Big 12 has to win that league. That team is going to the playoffs, and that will probably be a team that has never done anything like that before, unless it's Colorado or BYU, which have won championships. So, yeah, I think Oklahoma State, early leader.
All right, let's continue with kind of the futures bets, but this one's to the good. If you're gonna have to, like a little, we'll use our producer's money. Shane makes the most out of the 4 of us. Who gets the best bet, Arizona or South Carolina?
For what?
To make some hay this year, kind of from off the
South Carolina. Well, that's random.
I actually think they got a big one against LSU on the 14th. Listen, South Carolina kicked Kentucky's teeth in.
Yeah, they did.
And Pete, don't.
So what is the
So who like you got to take you got to take a long shot. Arizona looks to be like they may not be too bad, and neither does South Carolina. Either one of those, like, pick a team that you think that is going to be better than we think they are right now. Of those two,
well, Arizona was expected to be good and compete for the Big 12. So the answer has to be South Carolina. There was until last Saturday, there were rumblings again of Shane Beamer being in trouble. Nothing official.
I thought we liked him too. They're so fickle down there. That's a tough job.
Oh, they're in a lot of other places. Yeah, it's a tough job, and he knows that. They get 81,000 every game, whether they're 0-10 or 10-0. So they're great fans. Nothing to be said for that. But look, the same was the situation a couple of years ago, and they had that good season. So the answer has to be South Carolina. And if you really want to squint, the SEC is going to be given every opportunity from the committee to get 5 in.
Ugh.
So if they really go nuts, I don't think there's room on the schedule for 10 wins, but you might see that.
Dennis, let's stick in the SEC there for a second, because I think one of the couple teams that everybody feels like they know is good is obviously Georgia, Texas being maybe one of the other ones, but Georgia's schedule is an absolute juggernaut. Like how confident I assume they're going to make the playoff regardless, but how confident are you they can get through this thing without getting kind of touched up a little bit?
I think they can and will get touched up, and I think they'll go into the playoff. Maybe not the number 1 seed, but right up there, maybe the number 5 if they don't get the number 1 because of that schedule. I did a story. God, I've done several stories on this where through the years there's been this little group of ADs that decided on their own, we're going to schedule each other because we know this thing before the playoff expanded. We know this thing's expanded. And what's going to be the key to it? It's going to be strength of schedule. And among them was Georgia with former Greg McGarity, Scott Strickland at Florida, Chris Del Conte at Texas. There were others, Greg Byrne at Alabama. And so they made this choice on their own that they were going to do this, and then follow that up in the offseason at the SEC spring meetings in Destin. I started asking, it just popped into my head, what about 9-3 teams? Oh, we absolutely should be in there. First choice, 9-3. Well, here's your team. Georgia at 9-3, in or out with that schedule. They're going to be given every consideration because of who they play. 10-2, absolutely in. But I think that's one of the unwritten rules that people have to watch from the new expanded playoff, because I ran the numbers, somebody ran the numbers, over the course of the 26 years of the BCS era since 98. 28 teams with at least 3 losses would have gotten in. There was 1 year Florida State would have gotten in at the time with 4 losses. So it's absolutely going to happen. And so in answer to your question, yeah, Georgia's going to be in the playoff, and they're going to be highly ranked, and they might be 9-3.
Apparently, Kyle McCord is Heisman candidate worthy. I say that tongue in cheek, and I realize Miami still has to go to Louisville and to Syracuse. I know you like Miami based on what you just said, but for the money, are they the best team in the ACC, or do you still expect something wacky as the season progresses?
Yeah. Having seen that team week 1,
apparently now Cal is a trap game now too. If they got to go to Berkeley,
maybe not. By the way, that's the longest road trip since the Voyager launched in 1977. And it's 1 billion miles into it. I mean, I look at that. It's like 3. I looked at it before the season. Anyway, no, I think Miami's a favorite. There's a reason there was a bidding war for Cam Ward. And it's one of those things where you either got to get him, or, the team that gets him is going to be a difference maker. And I think we saw that. The way he stood in, his leadership, that defense is way better than I thought. It's intimidating. And now you just have to get past the Mario Cristobal passes of, counting how many timeouts, not taking a knee, stuff like that. When you're in close games, I think Miami's head and shoulders above everybody in that league right now.
Well, and we saw what happens when you lose that bidding war. You end up with DJU and you're 0-2 at Florida State.
There you go. Yeah, what a mess that is. God. How about that? The DJU is, look, he wasn't, who was the old Viking? So Dennis Green, he wasn't who we thought he was.
Yeah.
And that's a great story for somebody to write. Who screwed up that 5-star? Because it's just an evaluation. It's like the top 25. It's what you think. This kid arguably got worse. Well, he had a pretty good year last year, but he's not a difference maker. He's a great kid. You love him as a son, but he's not going to be that guy to lead you to the promised land. It's just not.
Speaking of weird and quarterbacks, Coach Rule was sick that week, and Raiola D commits, and Kyle McCord is on campus in Lincoln on that Monday. And this guy ends up at Syracuse, and he looks like a world beater. What is going on with how fortunate you've got to be with this quarterback play?
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend I know what happened to Kyle McCord, but look, there is that maturity factor. Like, we don't give that to players a lot, especially at quarterback, where you can be good in year 3 and 4. You have to be good right away. And that's what fascinates me about Arch Manning, is he went there knowing that he probably maybe would sit for 2 years. But yeah, no, that's important. And I think the Dylan, Raiola or Raiola?
Raiola.
I know the family, and I still don't know. Raiola. Okay.
Me too.
They're going to right. There are going to be moments where he doesn't look very good because he's a freshman. But I think that's beyond the point of Matt saying early on, we're going to ride or die with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to have him for 3 years, and at some point he's going to be a Heisman Trophy winner, contender if you surround him with enough weapons.
Mm-hmm.
That's how good he is. I had Brown. I shouldn't say that. I'll pass, but I have some high praise for him from a high source. Go ahead.
That's Dennis Dodd from CBS Sports. Dennis, we appreciate the time as always, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, guys.
That's Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports. We'll be back with more Herd Out Sports Radio coming up next. Welcome back to Herd Out Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. Before we get to Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. We're going to get to our guy, Lance, wants to talk about the third quarter. Is this regular Lance or Michigan Lance?
Nope, he would say Michigan.
We just got regular Lance. What's up, Lance?
Regular Lance. Hey, guys, how's it going?
Good, how you doing?
LBZ, off the Heezy. What's up, buddy?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
I'm good.
Oh, is it that Lance?
Yeah, Lincoln Lance.
What's up, Lance?
Yes, sir. What's up, guys? Hey, want to talk a little about that game. Really impressed with how they came out of the gate and built that lead. I felt like Colorado for sure quit on offense. I don't think I saw them quit as much on defense. And I think they gave us enough things that we didn't do well that the team can still be coached up and know that this isn't the best game of the year. So that was a good thing. The bad for me was that third quarter. I didn't care how bad we beat them, but I think over the last few years, we've watched our team be in positions to win games. I want to say in the last 2 years, Wisconsin, we were in a game where we just needed a first down. We couldn't get it. We give the ball back and they go and win. I think if you look at the third quarter, if you look at the number of plays we ran, we averaged less than 4 yards a play, which to me isn't really winning football. In order to be where we want to be at the end of the year, they got to get to that 32 to 35% on third down.
How many plays they ran in the third quarter? It was 19, right? They had 8 runs and 10 passes.
Yep,
yeah, 9 runs.
I think 74 yards or so.
Yeah.
In those plays. So we have a quarterback where we can play pitch and catch. And so why we didn't see more like mesh or some slants or I don't know, where the flag route where you kind of cut it short and sit down. We ran that a lot in week 1. It just would have been nice to see us stack first downs and just take the air out of the ball. That's my only complaint about that third quarter.
So that's interesting because, there's some legit points there. Nebraska had the ball over 9 minutes. So 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Barney had the 1 carry for 21. Dowdell was going for 4 per. He had 5 for 20. Ramirez had 3 for 10. Raiola was 7 of 10 for 44 yards. But they had the 3 penalties for 28. So you're looking at 9 minutes, over 9 minutes time of possession in a quarter, and 19 plays. You're on pace right there, Lance, for 76 plays per game. Would you take that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the weird, because I felt like your points were legit, but I couldn't figure out where Nebraska was going wrong, because the numbers say,
but it felt different.
The numbers say it should have been more productive in terms of points.
Yeah.
Yes, especially those first 2 drives. I mean, I think last year we struggled coming out of the half.
Yeah.
So I think our first drive in the third quarter was 3 plays. And
I think the first 2 were 3 and out. Oh, okay. So it was 1 3 and out, and then they were both 3 and outs, right? The first 2 drives.
I think so.
I think so. I remember Sharp saying something about that real time in the broadcast. He's like, I'd like a little rhythm here. I think these first 2 drives were 3. Yeah, so I think the first 2 drives were 3 and outs. So that's to your point too.
Yeah, I just think hey, get to that 32, 35%, and I think we're golden. I mean, I didn't realize that the time of possession was as high as it was in that third quarter. I don't know if it was that just seems really odd, but there's enough for them to build on, and I think they will. And I think you get a team like Illinois. I mean, Northern Iowa is a test, and my hope is we continue to get some of those young guys, especially at the tackle position, some reps, and get some guys on defense some rest, and save them, and go into Big Ten play feeling really good about down the stretch. I think you have to really like where Nebraska's sitting right now, and I think the competition really ramps up, and don't want to look too far down the barrel, but if they play the way they played Saturday the rest of the year, I mean, Andy Staples had us on the first 4 out of the playoff, and they look more like a 10-win team than an 8-win team.
Oh, that's crazy. And that's another good call. Appreciate it, Lance.
Appreciate the call there.
He breaks off some good calls. He said something. So here's the thing. This is why it's really hard. I have to go back and really, really watch that third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Because the numbers don't lend. Now, the stat that doesn't lie is they were 0 of 3 on third downs.
Yep.
But they did have 19 plays ran. 19 plays in a quarter is a good chunk.
Yeah. For you're not a tempo team, that's a good number.
That's a good number.
Yeah, especially not just are you not a tempo team, you're probably pretty actively trying to salt the game away at that point. So to get to 19 plays, you would generally be pretty happy with it.
Colorado only ran 7 plays, though.
Right.
So is that fool's gold, right? I keep saying fool's gold. So Colorado only ran 7 plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's on pace. You can do that math. 7 times 4 is 28.
That's not very many plays.
It's not very many plays during the course of a game. Will you see that again?
Maybe not just 7, but I think this kind of goes to Sam's point earlier in the show, where when your defense is that good.
No, I take that back. It wasn't 7. They ran 12 plays.
But still, that's only 48 for the game.
Yeah, they ran 12.
Which is, for a team that's trying to run tempo, 48 plays is, I mean, you got to get to at least 60 to feel decent, right?
Yeah, that is, it's got to be the 0 for 3 on third down.
It does.
Because on its head,
everything else looks great.
It looks great.
Minus the no points.
The yards per carry was good.
Yep.
The completion percentage was good.
7 for 10, yeah. Everything else seems like it should. I think it's closer to being points than it is to being fool's gold.
So Nebraska's 13 of 25 on the year, I think, in third down conversions. They were 10 of 13 against UTEP,
9
right?
of 13, 10 of 13.
Well,
somewhere in that neighborhood.
I'm glad you asked because I have it statistically. So on third downs against UTEP, Nebraska was 11 of 17.
Must have been 9 of 13 after the
Okay,
third.
so 11 of 17 plus 3 of 12 is 14 of 29. That's not bad. You're right at what, 48%?
Yeah. I mean,
on third down conversions, but the bulk of them
came against
UTEP. So they'll have to buoy that.
Yeah, but if you can, I mean, obviously, if you can stay at that number, you're great. If you can stay, north of 38
on third down conversions? Yeah, you'd like
38
to be a
to
little better.
42.
Like that's high.
Okay.
I know we're talking degrees of percent, but that's like 2 more series a game.
I know, but so I mean, so you want to be a little higher than 38, so like right at 40?
Yeah,
Like
or better.
Well-
I'd say 44% is like operating at a really, 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 really high level.
so if they can get to 40, you feel okay.
Yeah.
Which is doable.
Especially when you're not turning the ball over.
Yes.
Knock on wood.
So far so good on that. Yeah, I think it's a lot. I think that quarter is a lot closer to being points than it is to being fool's gold. But speaking of fool's gold, let's get to bet on it.
I'm gonna go back and watch that third quarter.
Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. I've watched it a couple times now after live.
And I know Michael's mad at Sat, or he doesn't really like Sat, and I get it, and I know I come across as a defender, but these numbers lead me to believe it's better than I think we think it is.
I mean, just look at the chunk plays that were generated that got called back.
Yeah.
Like those are in a lot. Or look at
Dylan's averaging 7 yards per completion in that quarter, and they ran the ball 9 times for 51 yards,
which is north of 5 a carry.
So what was going on?
Didn't convert on third down and had some penalties. That's it.
Yeah, 3 for 28 too.
Yeah, like that's it. That's the whole thing.
So am I mad about the play calling?
No,
I don't think so.
And look at the stuff that got schemed open. Okay, the Jalen Lloyd route that we talked about in the first half that should have been a touchdown, right? Whether it was a little overthrown, whether Lloyd should have caught it, whatever, right? That's schemed up as a touchdown, and they got what they wanted.
Now,
right?
to Lance's point, but he may have said this to me privately. I don't think he loved the dink and dunk.
Right. But
so,
I think
because
we need to get over that.
Ramir did have 5 targets, 4 catches, but for only 18 yards
in that quarter.
Yeah.
Okay. I was say for the game he had more than
receiving
18, for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Barney had the 2 for 1.
I get
and then Bork had the 1 for 25.
I think we're gonna have to get over it. I think we're gonna have to get over not liking the dink and dunk.
I do like the intermediate passing game because
I want to get to that. We can get to the next segment, but real quick, nationally, who's the team you think is fool's gold? I know you brought up Oklahoma. I know we kind of think.
I don't know if I think they're fool's gold.
I know we don't totally trust Cristobal with Miami, even though they've looked pretty good.
Who would I give as candidates? Penn State, Oklahoma. You know who I think is a little bit of fool's gold?
Who?
Maybe Louisville.
Ooh.
Even though I like them at the beginning of the year. But of those guys, I'm going to go with Oklahoma being fool's gold.
I'm going Oregon.
That's ballsy.
I'm going Oregon's fool's gold.
That would be pretty gutsy.
That's bet on it.
You want to bet on it?
I do. Well, let's bet on it. Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Make sure you get out to the Sportsbook in Lincoln tonight. It's their Monday night tailgate drawings. You can win tickets to the Kansas City Chiefs. You can win Yeti coolers, free slot play, lots of stuff. Get to warhorsecasino.com for details. Go Big Red.
He has to hold himself back.
Oh, yeah.
He really likes his football team.
We are back
He
here.
wants to tell you how good they are.
And wrapping up the show. I think he's just going to show us, which I'm okay with as well. That's a great clip there because you can hear it in his voice.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of it's funny.
I go back to what he said pregame, what he's been saying all summer.
Hey, it's a good football team.
And you know what? And I contrast that against last year. You know, I would come back and I would kind of tell like these little anecdotal stories that he would talk to me about before games because we do that whole walk around the field thing. And he'd say, I'd ask him, week to week, and he'd always say the same thing. He goes, I tell our guys, we got to play mistake-free football, and we have to hang in there. This is going to be a fourth quarter game. I'd say the same thing about almost any opponent we're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to be that way.
Yep. It's like he knows what he's talking about.
So
he has a really good feel for his football.
Now, conversely,
what is he saying this year?
Yeah, we got good. That's like the 18th time he said that they have good players. Hey, we have stars that come out and support us in Nebraska too.
Yeah.
Hey, we have good players. Hey, our defense is. They keep talking about other players. Like he's low key, but not low key, telling you that he likes his football team.
And so far, so good. I mean, no questions on my part here, at least, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Well, you know how many good players aren't playing?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Especially, I mean, because you're only really getting lots of rotation on the D line, a little bit in the linebacker group, not a ton.
And next to none in the secondary.
Almost none in the secondary. Even against UTEP, that was the group that rotated in the least. The secondary.
He did a really good job of I think that's a guy that's used to coaching adults.
Yeah.
Butler.
100%. Like he's been in the NFL for the last decade, 12 years, whatever it's been.
Smart dude, though. He's, man.
Especially for where he came in during the process, it makes a lot of sense that he's like, hey, I'm going to lean on the older guys. I'm going to lean on the guys that I have a super high level of confidence in that are grasping what I'm teaching right now, and we'll bring the other guys along throughout the course of time.
Yeah. Daddy O, by the way, he's a Nebraska grad, 91. Shout out. He said, Dink and Dunk dominates college football because defenses cannot tackle in space. These black shirts tackle better in space than any version in recent memory. That is correct.
100%. There was one where that big tight end for Colorado, 31, I think. He's like 260 pounds or something. Looks maybe even bigger than that. Got one out in space, and then it was...
Are you surprised how little they use tight ends? And then they bring him in short yardage. I was like, those guys don't even play.
I think it was Buford came across and wrapped that dude up where, I don't know, 80% of defensive backs in the country are getting trucked by that dude.
Yeah.
And he just comes up and makes an incredible tackle, keeps it to about a 2-yard gain. It's that kind of stuff. We've been talking about Bullock all day, about how good he is and how well he tackles in space. But even the thing that I like a lot from last year to this year is the defensive line finishing plays more often. We heard Ty talk to us about it in Indy. I thought Nash would because of the weight loss and being a little bit quicker. And then you see it, Jamari's finishing plays, Prince Wells finishing plays. I think Riley Van Poppel's playing well in the time that he's getting. You're getting...
How about Kai Wallen? They put him in like drive and like that wide 9.
Yes.
My man was getting after it.
And I know James Williams isn't getting a bunch of stats right now. He is collapsing the pocket every time he's out there.
Well, he does make you go one way.
Yes.
Because you can't step up because of the push of the interior.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever side he's on,
yes, you're
going the other way.
Yes. And he makes it so you're getting better looks on the interior as well. Because you can't, you got to get out wide to get around or to stay in front of James Williams.
Two guys, I got to say this, man. 2 guys that aren't typically on Team Ravi are riding Team Ravi right now. Are you winning people over?
Who?
Well, Lance is with you on Oregon.
Yeah.
Which I think is a ballsy call. Like, if you're right, that'd be legit. But, and I know it's just because people think because I like him, but Joel is riding with you too. Amara says, I'm with Ravi. That old line is bad and sloppy. Gabriel is 34-16 as a starter. He's the type of player that the transfer portal elevated to a status he doesn't deserve. Now, who does that part sound like?
Me.
No, about Gabriel.
Oh, about Gabriel, but about the transfer portal quarterbacks is me.
You're
right on Gabriel.
I'm not a Gabriel guy.
And I'm on, hey, sometimes we think just because you're the best guy.
Now, he was 18 of 21. But
yeah, that game's not his fault.
It's
but
just weird. There's just something
so
about
if you want to get mad about a dink and dunk guy or about a guy that his stats are not as meaningful as they look, that's a guy that you could point to is Dylan Gabriel.
Are you in or out on Miami? Can you talk about Miami without talking about Cristobal?
I can't. Because as a football team, just as like a roster, right? Pretty good. Like I like their pieces. Obviously, Cam Ward kind of elevates them to another level of what their ceiling can be. But man, I have a really hard time trusting Cristobal.
Are you in or out on Oklahoma?
I think I'm out. I don't love it. I think they're going to win some ugly games. They're probably going to win a decent amount of games. It depends on what you mean by in or out. Like as a playoff contender or as a legit national title contender, I'm out.
Yeah, their schedule is ridiculous.
They're still going to have a pretty good football team, but I think it's like 8 or 9. I don't think they're real.
You in or out on Penn State?
Out.
I was surprised to hear Dennis not acknowledge that Arizona State is coming from off the radar. Did people think they could be dangerous? Yeah. They weren't ranked in the top 25.
Arizona or Arizona State?
Arizona.
Okay. Yeah.
Now they're now 20.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't one of the teams that people thought could win
the
Big 12.
They were talked about. I was like, oh, they might be all right still. They kept their quarterback. They kept the wide receiver. But they weren't talked about in the Oklahoma State, Utah, Kansas State group.
They're top
or Kansas
20, They're top 20.
They
weren't even getting Kansas type.
That's what I mean. They were 5th in the pecking order at least in the Big 12.
I don't know if I'm buying them though, but I mean, they are good at the quarterback spot.
Again, depends on buying them as what. Can I think they can contend for the Big 12? Probably. Do I think they're a real threat nationally? No.
Are they the best team in Arizona?
I like Kenny Dillingham. I kind of ride with Kenny Dillingham a little bit.
How about Cal going to Auburn? That's a bad loss.
That's a really bad loss.
They're a double-digit fave.
You see them troll after they won.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
it just means more.
Hey, so the funny thing is they get Miami at their place.
At Cal, yeah, that's what he was talking about, the road trip to Siberia.
I'm glad because sometimes guys don't always know the schedule. Dennis has great command of the schedule.
Yes, yeah.
Because I looked at Miami, they got to go to Cal, they have to go to Louisville, and they have to go to Syracuse.
Yeah, and all of a sudden that Syracuse game doesn't feel that great either.
Dude, apparently Kyle McCord, like I said, is Joe Montana.
I said this last year. Like, I get that he wasn't what
you did.
Ohio State was last year.
The great Kyle McCord defender.
I mean, I think he was better than he got credit for.
I do remember you saying it.
Like, he wasn't bad.
You go, can they just use him right? I was like, I don't know how you want him used. They got weapons.
Right. No, I get that. But I think when you're.
You mean let him spin it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like they were super conservative with him and like they didn't trust him, which I get he's not one of the first round guys that we saw.
I know right now he's got Gadsden on pace like for a Biletnikoff guy.
Yeah.
How about that tandem?
That I kept saying, like, are we 100% sure that Will Howard is a significant upgrade over Kyle McCord?
And are out on Missouri.
I'm a wait and see on Missouri.
Man, they're scheduled though.
Yeah.
And I know I said that. Did you like my Notre Dame jinx? Now they still
they could still get in.
They got to run.
They got to win out.
Yeah.
And if they don't win out,
he's left himself no margin.
He's in trouble if they don't win out.
Yeah, he left himself no margin.
Because this is a schedule they should be in the playoff on. I was going to say Charlie Weiss, though. As soon as the way he phrased that question, I was like, it's either Charlie Weiss or one of the.
You weren't going to say Jerry Faust?
No. No.
Go back and watch that 30 for 30 with Catholics versus convicts.
Our procedure.
They made Jerry Faust look like, milquetoast. It is incredible.
No, I think I'm a little worried about Marcus Freeman.
Yeah. Are you?
And I like him.
I know what you're gonna say.
All right.
Because they got off to a slow start. And I don't think you liked them at the beginning of the season, but you're clearly out on Wisconsin.
Oh yeah. I thought they'd be better than this, though.
Me too.
I'm not impressed with Wisconsin at all.
So remember we had that whole couple segments on the whole Van Dyke versus Sims if Wisconsin's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Van Dyke's a guy that historically has turned the football over.
Yeah.
Could he all of a sudden not? But it's something else going on with that offense.
Yeah, I really wonder, and I can't remember if we brought this up on the show or if it was an off-air conversation either between me and you or somebody else, but they were talking about how, and I don't think you have to run a certain type of offense or style to be successful at certain places outside of like service academies, but I do think there is something to like the DNA of Nebraska needs to play physical football.
Yeah.
Right. Wisconsin needs to play physical football. Iowa needs to play physical football. And I know that people overdid the air raid thing with Wisconsin last year, but it does seem like they've gotten away from the DNA that has built that program. And I wonder how much of that, like there's almost a tiny bit of Bill Callahan at Nebraska vibes there. And because Bill Callahan brought in really good players, right? And he had some success here. But there's almost like it didn't fit the DNA of the place he was in. And I wonder how much that matters at a place like Wisconsin long term.
So, yeah, I hope they're not good.
Hey, me too. I want to beat their heads in November. Let's do it.
I hope they're not good.
I hope they come here in November and catch one like Colorado just did.
They did run the ball 41 times, though.
Yeah. They, I don't know if it's too late to this year course correct, but maybe. We'll see. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lula. That's the show for Monday. We'll be back tomorrow. Plenty more to talk about from the weekend here on Earth Sports Radio.